Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 51 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer and simulcast live on the I-95 Sports Network, Zingo Channel 198, alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for joining us here for 51 straight weeks of fantastic talking and sports talk and all of the above. And my guys Ian and Rob here to be able to do it has been not only a blessing, but it has been so much fun for them to be a part of this. We're going to get to them in just a moment, but we do want to say also that we are live as well on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And do not forget, we are also live on YouTube by searching I-95 Sports Network. Please subscribe to us whenever you do get a few seconds following our show. Also, we also want to just say that this show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. We really do appreciate all of everything that Andrew Giordano has done for us. Do not forget Black Cats NYC. Their newest album, Free Cake, is out now. Play loud. Listen on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, and Spotify. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a fantastic show up ahead for you. We will be welcoming just shortly, we see him in the back end here, NCAA Hoops Digest writer Jake Zimmer will be joining us here. We'll be talking a lot about basketball, college basketball, and more specifically, the Big East. Ian Schraier and Rob DeLuca, guys, how was your week?
Well, since we last spoke and I'll quote Rob here, for our 50th episode extravaganza, pitchers and catchers have reported we're a week closer to the tournament, to the NCAA tournament, and I am just so fed up and so ready for the spring, for the beautiful blue skies and not a cloud, and ready for spring and summer to be here. But you know what? We're fortunate that we're ready in the Northeast, because I can only imagine what's happening in the town of Dallas right now, where they're not prepared for the snow, and they've just had such power outages and everything happening there. So I'm very fortunate that we have our health, and we have electric, and we have gas, and we have everything that we have, because Dallas doesn't have that right now.
Rob DeLuca, the whole Lone Star State is really reeling from that. Rob DeLuca, how about yourself? How was your week since our extravaganza last week?
I gotta agree with Ian here. Prayers up to the people of Texas. Hopefully everyone gets their power back soon. Everybody is safe, and so we are fed up with the snow too up here. I'm certainly fed up with it. I was just out there. I did not enjoy it. So spring, please come soon. But now we've got another great couple 2 hours or so of content to bring our lovely listeners, and it's going to be great, as it always is. Let's get started.
Yeah, it's very funny because we bring up snow, we bring up we're complaining about 2 inches here, but our good friend Jake Zimmer here is known. He knows all about snowstorms and and blizzards and all of the above in the New England area, because that's where he's from. Ladies and gentlemen, NCAA Hoops Digest, Jake Zimmer. Jake, how are you, buddy? Good seeing you.
Always a pleasure, and you say this at a time where I just walked out of my car and I almost slipped right in front of my apartment, because it's getting a little. The roads aren't bad. Let me be very clear. It's only a couple of inches of snow up here. It's not really sticking to the ground, but the way our parking lot is in our apartment, I almost just fell flat on my face on the stairs. So thanks for a gentle reminder of how brutal New England winters are. But in all seriousness, safety to the people of Texas, of course. I know I got the -2 the other night. A lot of wind turbines and energy sources are still frozen up. So power's slowly coming back. So stay safe. It's really all we can say, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's really something crazy, and you see the whole radar where everything is, right outside of central United States, where just to the right or to the east and to the west, it's a little warmer, but right down in the Lone Star State, it is the coldest that it's ever been. Really, really crazy stuff. So, Jake, obviously, thank you so much for coming on here. And the last time that we were on here, episode number 50 last week, that was one thing that we had promised our guests that we would get to, was a lot about Big East basketball. And we unfortunately ran out of time. So we wanted to make sure that Jake Zimmer was our special guest here to follow up on our extravaganza and to be able to come on here and talk all Big East basketball. Because I remember a year ago, Jake, roughly about a year ago, you were supposed to come down to the Garden. And it's really crazy how we're already at February 19th and we're just about a little over 11 months, where March 12th hit, obviously the day the world or the day the sports world stopped. And I remember when I had texted you and I had said, oh, good thing you didn't come down. You were about to come down as well. And it's so close to being 1 full year since that whole stuff has happened.
Isn't that crazy? I had my hotel booked. I had my train ticket. I was going to go down from Rhode Island. I had taken the day off of work.
Yeah,
I had planned to hop on the train in Kingston, where my former office was, and peace out for the weekend. Say thanks, but no thanks. And head over to head over to do a different kind of work and more rewarding for sure. And unfortunately, it was just ripped right out of my hands. Now, had some conversations with our crew at College Hoops Digest about, hey, maybe this presents a unique opportunity. But at the end of the day, by the time we had even taken to contemplate that, the tournament was over.
Oh, yeah.
It was by the time we had made the decision to not move forward with any coverage, the media was restricted at that point anyway. But isn't that crazy? Almost 52 weeks from that date.
Yeah, it's really nuts. And, just to be able to really start looking ahead to the 2021 Big East tournament is really something crazy. And, obviously limited media will be there. And especially because a lot of the Zoom calls and the WebExes and everything else that has been working virtually, it's really okay where we can do it just from the comfort of our own homes and be safe. So let's get things started here, fellas. Obviously down here in the New York area, Jaden Daly's all about it. Daily Dose of Hoops, the sister site of NCAA Hoops or College Hoops Digest. Josh Adams, Dan Gardella, you, Jake. Everyone's been talking about St. John's and the Red Storm, where they have won 7 of their last 8. Their biggest loss in that stretch came at Butler inside Hinkle Fieldhouse. And it was a 76-73 loss in overtime. And that was they have not won inside Hinkle Fieldhouse since 2013-14. And that 16-point deficit that Butler had, they overcame it. And St. John's now continues to be haunted by the Hinkle Demons. I want to start off here with Ian Schraier because this is listen, you worked the Xavier game. You were the one that was on statistics. And I had made sure that there were a couple of errors that were taken care of. I made sure I texted Ian midway. I was like, listen, no. Yeah, it's jumper here, it's dunk here. No, we're good. 93-84. Xavier, St. John's takes down Xavier. Marcellus Earlington has 4 triples in a row. Big stuff from him and a big bench presence. Ian, what did you see that night when you were working that game?
I think you just said it, Joey. Big bench presence. They scored 93 points that night, and a third of their scoring that night. You'd imagine with the play lately of players like Julian Champagnie throughout the whole season, Posh Alexander throughout the whole season, that it would be guys like them that would step up in such a crucial game coming off the Butler loss. But it was probably the most, besides maybe the Villanova game, it was probably the most complete 40 minutes I think we've seen from St. John's all season. And I think it's hard to argue that. But like I said, the play off the bench, the fact that a third of their scoring came off the bench, players like Marcellus Earlington dropping in 16, Isaiah Moore had 11. The best part about the game was that both teams in the first half were trying to play to that fast up style tempo where they were going to try and get down the court. We've seen St. John's try and do it all year. They were succeeding. Xavier was also succeeding a little bit, but St. John's, their shots were falling a little more than Xavier's. And then in the second half, we saw something a little unusual from St. John's, where they actually kind of backed down a little bit more into a half-court set in the second half, which kind of felt a little more conservative from what we usually see Mike Anderson do, which is really just trap and trap and trap. Instead, they really tried to instead of run the floor, they tried to really burn more clock, and sometimes that doesn't work to your advantage. But for St. John's, it seemed like also in the second half, after a first half that was just all, run and gun down the court, was the fact that they were able to, every time it seemed like Xavier pulled within 9, within 7, pulled within a couple of possessions, St. John's always had that answer. So I thought this was, besides the Villanova game, the most complete 40 minutes we've seen from St. John's all season.
Yeah, Jake Zimmer, you are really a Big East fiend, and something that really is cool for those that do not know. Jake has been on the public address system inside Alumni Hall, Joe Mulaney Court. Really, really cool stuff. Not only for the women, but also for the men as well. So not only to hear our good friend Brandon Gowden, on the call on Fox national television, but we also have the pleasure of hearing the man that's right below me here on this screen inside that building and hear that voice go through the speaker system of Alumni Hall. Really amazing stuff. But for you, Jake, as a Big East observer, if you will, or a follower, you've seen St. John's and they've won 7 of 8, but Posh Alexander, he leads the way, 2.6 steals per game within the Big East. Paul Scruggs is not too far behind, 1.8. He looked awful a couple of nights ago. And St. John's losing in that Butler game. Jake, how big of an impact does that have, especially now where we've seen multiple reports that the UConn game that was slated to come down to Carnesecca Arena is most likely will not be played again? Or will not be rescheduled, excuse me, yeah.
Right. Well, first of all, Joe, I want to thank you for your comments about my public address work. I think you use the term pleasure, and I'm not sure that Ed Cooley's too thrilled with me just screaming 4-3 for the 9th time, in a span of 20 minutes. But as far as St. John's goes, it almost I think the general sentiment after that loss at Hinkle Fieldhouse was, is that going to take the wind out of their sail? What's the breaking point? This 76-73 loss, it's a tough, well-fought battle against the, obviously against the team that they've really been haunted by on the road. The short answer is no. The short answer is no, they were not haunted by that, because the Xavier game shortly after is, living, breathing proof that St. John's is here, right? They're here to stay, especially this year. They're coming in 5th in the Big East as we're recording this today. A couple of things stick out to me about St. John's this year. Nothing new to any of you guys, but number one, Posh Alexander, my goodness, what a phenomenal addition. The sentiment behind Mike Anderson when he was hired, the question that he had been faced with for years, or for a couple of years since taking this job anyway, is can he recruit New York? Yeah. Does he have the stones to go out and get the guys that are going to play for these big time programs, that are going down the road to Villanova, that are maybe going up the road to a place like BC or a place, anywhere along the Atlantic coast, right? Can you recruit New York is the question. And the answer is yes. I mean, my goodness, to get a guy like Posh Alexander, who's in your backyard from Brooklyn, consider that a big win. So he has not skipped a beat whatsoever. And that is really going to attest to Mike Anderson's abilities to lead this program in the right direction. So that's what I'm seeing from Posh and Anderson. And then also Alexander has a supporting cast, right? He's not charged with doing it all by himself. He's not this highly touted recruit that's solely going to drive the success or failure of this team. He's got guys like Julian Champagny. He's got Rasheem Dunn, and he has arguably the deepest group in the Big East. Marcellus Earlington goes and tells Mike Vaccaro at the New York Post, we have 8 starters. Yeah. You don't see that in any program really this year. I think you could argue that, the guys at Villanova are getting some reps for sure, but even still, it's the guys like JRE and Colin Gillespie that are weighing that team down and carrying them in. So the depth for sure is going to complement Alexander really nicely as we get to crunch time these next couple of weeks.
It's really crazy you bring up about how Mike Anderson, there was the possibility where he might not be able to recruit. Then all of a sudden, Steve DeMayo comes in, who is very familiar with the New York City area. He's from Bayside, Queens, not too far from here. And that was really the key to getting a lot of these guys here. And also, let's not forget, just a few months before UConn was announced to be coming home, Mike Anderson was just coming in. So, and there were rumblings. We heard that UConn, there's a good chance that they could come back in. So how did it all work out? It's working out so far, but we still got a long ways to go. Rob DeLuca, for you as a fan, I want to now get the fan perspective. Let's hear it.
Look, this team certainly has a little bit of excitement in them right now, and for good reason. 7-1 in the last 8 games is nothing to sneeze at. In reality, should it be an 8-game winning streak? Yes. That game in Butler was won and thrown away at the same time by the Red Storm. Yeah. But nonetheless, there's certainly a lot of hopes here. A little bit of a trap game tomorrow, if you ask me. as they bring DePaul into Queens. I think St. John's needs to take it like they would take any other game and take care of business, because the big test once again when they bring Villanova in on Tuesday, I believe it is.
Or they actually head down to Finneran.
They head down.
They head down to Finneran.
They head down to the Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
But yes, that's where the big test is. So it is very important not to mess up this trap game. Take care of business and get ready for Villanova, because this could determine whether or not you get an at-large bid.
I find it amazing because we saw Seton Hall just a couple of days ago. They almost lost to DePaul because Paulie
that's Paulie Polycap. Yep.
There we go. Yeah, I was going to say.
You're saying it. I heard you thinking about that before you said it. It's Paulie Polycap.
Jake knows me. He knows exactly my thoughts. And I was about to say it. I had it written down here, and I second guessed myself. But Paulie Polycap, he led the way. He led the charge in New Jersey, and there's no reason why that DePaul cannot come in here tomorrow into Carnesecca Arena and do some dirty work and really put St. John's on edge. This is big stuff, obviously, because St. John's is on that quote-unquote bubble with Xavier, with the aforementioned Seton Hall, UConn. Something I want to bring up here because as we know, Jake is from that area. So now James Bouknight is back, and he's back with a vengeance. Now we can kind of bring in UConn again. They looked like they were down and out when I think you were there. You were actually at Providence, where Providence won. Now you see at Gamble, where UConn comes in and basically wipes Providence with, on the floor. Talk about that, Jake, because now this team is now back in the conversation to, come into the tournament.
Yeah, Joey, stark contrast between the two games. I mean, the scoreboard says it all. It's almost a total reverse in every sense of the way. Providence wins game 1 by 11. UConn wins game 2 by 12. You look at the common denominator, it's not too hard to identify, and it's the presence of James Bouknight. We've heard about how the leaps and bounds in his game are going to take UConn to places that are going to allow them to compete in the conference this year. And when he's hurt, everyone kind of does a double take and says, all right, this might not be too good for UConn. And sure enough, it really has been a thorn in the side. They've really thrusted Adama Sanogo into an everyday 5-starter kind of role. He's been alternating basically between playing the 4 power forward and the true center role. And when you meet that with a Providence team whose real mantra that they've been trying to fix this year is the inability to defend, then you've got a recipe where, Providence might be able to take the Huskies by surprise, if you will. So that's what I believe they did. I think UConn is a phenomenal offensive rebounding team coming into the first game against Providence College. It was, an absolutely mind-boggling statistic. 36.8% of the time that they were able to be in a position to corral an offensive rebound, they did it. That is top 10 of the nation by far. And Providence goes and out-rebounds them on the offensive glass. That's a big reason why they won. You throw James Bouknight in there, and it's a totally different story. I mean, he's a guard. He's a 6'6" or 6'5" guard, whatever he is, but still, you draw the attention off of him, and you have 3 forwards who are more than capable of doing that dirty work. You've got a guy like Sanogo who can go against anyone in the Big East and at least play some decent defense against them. You've got Isaiah Whaley. You've got Tyrese Martin who can go grab a rebound and can throw it up. I mean, that's really where the power lies in this team. I think Bouknight, it's kind of incredible because he's doing the scoring, but he's almost functioning as a decoy to get these paint guys open. It's one of the most incredible and fascinating offensive schemes I think we've seen in the Big East in the last couple of years.
And not only that, too, Jake, a player that you did not mention who's just coming back from a blown-out Achilles is Akok Cook as well, who really can be a massive presence in there, and it furthers your point of James Bouknight being that decoy as well. Really crazy stuff, and that actually is a perfect follow-up because now I want to know from all of you guys who has the easiest path remaining this year out of the 4 teams mentioned: Xavier, St. John's, UConn, and Seton Hall. who really are most likely going to be taking, you figure that between 3 and 7 spot, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 through 6 in the Big East. Let's start with Ian first.
I think it's pretty cut and dry who has the easiest path right now. That's Seton Hall. When you look at the final games that they have, they just in the last week, they beat Marquette, and thanks to Mamu, they survived DePaul. But when you look at their next 2 games, they're at Georgetown, they're at Butler. I mean, really for Seton Hall right now, Seton Hall, I think in Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology right now is a 10 seed. But I think if they come away with wins down in DC and at Hinkle, I think that it pretty much cements them as a tournament team almost, even if they were to lose their last 2 games to UConn and St. John's. Right now, the team that's on the outside, the 2 teams that are on the outside looking in are St. John's and UConn. Yeah, and UConn is the last team on the is the first of the first four out. Yeah. So for them, it's tomorrow is huge for them. Right now, their game against Villanova is huge. I think Danny Hurley's team, and we already, sang James Bouknight's praises at this point, is if they could pull out a win tomorrow against Villanova. When you look at the rest of their schedule, 3 of their final 4 games are against bottom half teams in the Big East. 2 of them coming against Georgetown and 1 against Marquette. The part that really bugs me for St. John's tournament status, even though right now they're listed in the next 4 out, was the fact that because of Xavier's schedule and because of the COVID pause, they still had not until maybe about last week hadn't started playing the second half of their schedule. Yeah. So actually, they were still supposed to play Villanova. They were still supposed to play UConn. They were still supposed to play all these top-tier Big East opponents. And now when you look at their schedule, and because they can't make all those games happen in the final couple of weeks, they've lost Villanova from that schedule, and now they've lost Seton Hall from that schedule. So now that even further, it even makes the games for St. John's against Villanova, I'm not trying to discount Providence, but Villanova, Providence, and Seton Hall, that much more important. So yes, Hall has the easiest path, I should say, to the tournament. But for St. John's, just because of that change in Xavier's schedule, it made their path to the tournament that much harder.
Someone that is very familiar to Ian Schraier and also myself as well has commented on this as Nick Diamantis. Good to hear from you, buddy. Really, really long time since we've chatted. There. So Georgetown game is a trap game for Seton Hall. St. John's needs to schedule a tier 1 team with their long layoff. So Ian, we'll give you we'll give you a couple of seconds to respond to Nick, and then we'll go to DeLuca.
Well, I think Georgetown's been quite impressive. I mean, look, I think in the Big East preseason poll, they were picked last. I mean, or maybe second to last after before DePaul. Look, they've hung in with a bunch of teams this year. I mean, look, I hate to really add insult to injury for Jake, but the loss to Georgetown is what has really cemented Providence's fate, right? I mean. Yeah. Georgetown hung with Creighton not once but twice. So yeah, I don't disagree with them that they were a trap game for Seton Hall, but I just think Mamu has been such a key piece to that team. I mean, he single-handedly has taken this team on his back and has his team a couple of wins from the tournament. So I don't disagree with him, but at the same time, I still think Seton Hall is the better team overall.
Rob DeLuca, and then we'll head to Jake.
Yeah. Ian kind of took a lot of my talking point there, but nonetheless,
sorry, Rob.
Nonetheless, he's right about Xavier. I mean, that's why I'm going to go with them here. I mean, let's take a look at what happened here. They missed like a month of their season, and now they literally don't have to play Seton Hall. They don't have to play Villanova. Their hardest game is Creighton, and they get to have that in their building with their fans. So it gives them a little bit of an advantage there. If they can somehow get by that. If they can get by that and squeak a win out, their last 2 games are Georgetown and Marquette. That's nothing. That is absolutely nothing right now. Sure, Georgetown's a little hot, but they're not. Yeah. Georgetown's a little hot right now, but I wouldn't call it a problem for Xavier by any stretch of the word. This was a big break that the X caught, and it's gonna pay off for them.
Well, Jake, do you want to respond to that? Because I see your facial expressions are going a little up and down here.
Yeah, listen, I've been a self-proclaimed Georgetown hater. I think a lot of it has to do with what Ian just said. They knocked off the Friars, and that kind of, I'll refrain from further comment there. But, I think on this Georgetown theme, I'm almost looking at UConn's schedule and really liking what they're about to walk into, because they've got 2 against the Hoyas, 1 at home, 1 away. The game against Villanova tomorrow is unquestionably the biggest game of the regular season for them to this point. I think there's no opportunity for debate. If they win that game, it gets a whole lot sweeter to count the UConn Huskies to win out, if you will.
100%.
Georgetown, 2. You got Marquette for 1. And then, hell, if you beat all those guys, you got Seton Hall. That's a nice little feather of pocket, and it almost doesn't matter if they win that game or not. So a lot of good things for UConn that we've been seeing. I think if they keep it up, and Book Night is a full go, and a cook is a full go, which it seems like they are, I'm going to be singing UConn's praises for a bit here.
I got to ask a question here first to Jake, Joey, if you don't mind, just because I really want to go back to that Providence Georgetown game, because leading into that game, Jake, and I don't want to ask you to look back on some bad memories from this season, but look, David Duke's at the line down 2, and he makes the first, and hits the iron on the second, but leading into that game, Joe Lunardi had Providence in his first 4 outs, so they were they were the team that was right on the bubble. But I want to go back to David Duke, because that is really just such a point for me, because he was a preseason All-Big East first-team player. He's averaging 17 points per game, but he's only shooting 38% from the field. Knowing what you knew about him coming into the season, is this just a far underperforming season for him?
It's an interesting point, and it's with Duke, I call it a predicament. David Duke, we know what he was capable of. He's projected as, in a few polls, I'd say not by any way a majority, but in a few polls projected as the Big East Player of the Year. Walks in and he still has improved year over year. He's having a far better year than he did last year, believe it or not. Still, I believe, in the 16 to 17 points per game neighborhood.
Yeah.
The thing with David Duke is that it's him and Nate Watson. I went on the Daily Dose of Hoops podcast a couple of weeks ago with our friend Jaden, and a statistic that jumped off the page was that between David Duke, a 6'5" guard, and Nate Watson, a senior 6'10" center, they were scoring not 50% of the points, but more than half the team's overall offensive output was between 2 guys named Duke and Watson.
Yeah.
I don't really care who you are. That's unacceptable. And the problem for Ed Cooley has been, who's going to be the guy to step up and score a few points without compromising anything on the defensive end. The whole theme for the Friars this year has been the inability to defend. They've been trying to remedy that through so many different rotations. Just when you think Jimmy Nichols, the junior, is about to hop in, he suffers a non-COVID medical injury and he's out the rest of the year. You have Noah Horkler, who's the University of North Florida transfer, big 6'9" wing. He's a forward, of course, but he can shoot. What gives defensively is what we've saw early on. He's starting to make a little bit, more progression towards someone that can play alongside those guys like Duke and Watson. But the whole point is he can't do it himself.
Yeah.
David Duke cannot do it himself, and we are seeing his game suffer.
Yes.
Because, he's scoring points. There's no problem with his scoring output. He's just taken so many shots because he's got no weapons around him. And that's what I've seen from the Providence Friars so far. And that's, in my opinion, why David Duke is slipping a little bit.
It's beyond unfortunate to see what had happened last year with Providence, where they came tournament time. They were sky high. They were at an all-time high following their losses at the Wooden Classic out in California, where they lost to Long Beach State. That was basically their lowest of low. And then they began to just sweep everybody. And unfortunately, the tournament had to be canceled due to COVID. And it seems as if they can't get things going. And exactly what Jake said is that Nate Watson and David Duke, they need more help. And that actually brings me to my next point, where I'm going to agree with Jake Zimmer on this one, where UConn has the easiest schedule and the easiest path to get to the tournament. They've won 2 straight, Providence and Xavier, Xavier and Providence respectively. Before that, they did lose to Providence. That was without James Bouknight. You look at their schedule, as you guys brought up, at Villanova, at Georgetown. They host Marquette, at Seton Hall, and versus Georgetown. And the reason why I'm going to disagree with Ian Schraier here is because there is an X factor that a lot of people don't really talk about a lot. And that is Harvard grad transfer Bryce Aiken, who really has been taking the bull by the horn when he's healthy. And Seton Hall is a completely different team when he is there. And a lot of people who are listening right now might tell me, who is this guy, Joe, talking? He has no idea what he's talking about because Sandro Mamukelashvili is the engine. Well, you would say that because against DePaul, he had 25 points, 11 boards, and he also became the 45th Pirate to log 1,000 points. Congratulations to him. But Jared Roden with 17, Miles Cale with 11. Their schedule is not easy. At Georgetown, at Butler, versus UConn, and at St. John's. Those last two games, guys, I'm looking at right here, and I'm saying that Seton Hall is very, very, very vulnerable against an up-and-coming UConn team. And at St. John's right now, you don't want to play them in Queens. Just looking at some of the numbers here as well, and something that we've heard a few times as we're actually running out of time here with Jake. Seton Hall also, they have been winning with Bryce Aiken, even though he only averages 5.5 points per game. He's played in only 12 games, just a little under half of that. Ike Obiagu, Takal Molson, these guys need to step up. But also something that stuck out to me a few weeks ago when Miles Cale had come into the press conference. I believe it was Jerry Carino from Hoops Haven and at NJ.com had asked about the team's defensive performance. And he had said, elite teams do not play defense like this. Elite teams do not do this. So that's why I believe and on top of it too, we all know how Kevin Willard is, where he can say, well, he's out, or he's not out, or he might just eventually be dressed and might come back in. Who knows? So I personally believe that UConn has the easiest schedule. Again, looking at that, Seton Hall has one of the hardest things here. Jake Zimmer, we're going to have you back in the next couple of weeks before Big East tournament time because we love to have you around here, man. And we really appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, College Hoops Digest, Jake Zimmer. Jake, thank you so much for coming on here, buddy, and spending a little chunk of your Friday evening with us here on the Primetime Rundown.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm going to, Ian made me cry a little bit, so I'm going to go and sit in the corner and
Jake,
sulk.
Jake, hold on. I wanted to ask this one last piece about St. John's, though. Based on all the rookies you've seen in the conference this year, is Posh Alexander your unanimous choice for Big East Rookie of the Year at this point, or what?
I mean, I think if he does something crazy, if he goes out and lays a couple of goose eggs in the next couple of weeks, I'll have a different answer for you. But at this point, I mean, we have seen phenomenal play from Posh Alexander. I think he's the easy choice here.
Yeah, and just to conclude here, we'll leave it with this, where Nick Diamantis says Colgate has been rumored that St. John's will contact to schedule a game, technically a Tier 1 net opponent for St. John's, but may not be flashy enough to wow the selection committee. So, Nick, we're going to have to bring that up next time around with Jake when he returns. Jake, thank you so much, buddy, for coming on. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right,
Thanks,
buddy.
Jake.
Thanks.
All right, if I may, I've been working on this since we started because maybe 40 seconds after we went on air.
Yeah.
And I've been working for most of the half hour to make sure everything's correct, and we are ready to break this here on the Eastern Observer.
Oh,
okay.
Brett Gardner is returning to the New York Yankees. 1 year.
Hold on 1 second. We just have to get this. There we go.
45-year-old Brett Gardner to the Yankees.
Brett Gardner is back with the New York Yankees for 1 year, and he has a possible option. He will be paid $4 million this year, and if the option is picked up, that will turn into $11 million over the next 2 years. But the Garden Party continues in the Bronx. Let Brett bang.
So I know right here, Ian, and just by having, just by welcoming Casey and Larry in here, I see it on Casey's face that he wants to say something that is probably going to make us probably start crying in just a few seconds. But ladies and gentlemen, for all of our audio listeners, Casey Bryant, Larry Protakowicz, welcome to the show, fellas. Casey, I want you to respond to this Brett Gardner news, because are you just as happy as DeLuca is?
I think it's great that Megamind is finally getting a sequel. For years there was speculation as to whether or not. I thought the first one was underrated, so it's great that they're finally giving that character the proper airtime. I mean, the inevitable finally comes to fruition, so I guess good for you guys. You got a fourth outfielder, hooray, yay! Whatever. By the way, I feel like I want to address, by the way, off the bat, I felt showed up by Larry last week by showing up at the Jersey game. So I figured I would rep the best,
you went with the trash
in modern baseball history. So
he went with the trash cans.
Listen, this is a simpler time in Jersey history. Yeah, this was a simpler time. This is Nolan Ryan, who, if you ask Sam Rosen on last night's broadcast, plays hockey. He referred to Nolan Patrick as Nolan Ryan in overtime. He's 70. He gets excited, so we'll let it be.
Yeah. In overtime, you can do whatever you want. It's like extra innings in baseball. The announcers just say whatever comes to mind.
Exactly. It was past his bedtime anyway. He's got to take his meds. He's getting excited. It's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep it going here on the Primetime Rundown. We can't thank Jake Zimmer enough for joining us, but now we've got our guys, Casey Bryant, Larry Protakowicz. They are with us, yet again. Can't thank you guys enough for coming on here. And let's get things started here in the world of the National Football League. And, I didn't really cry when I heard this news. I was actually ecstatic. But when I heard the record dead cap hit for the Philadelphia Eagles, taking $33.8 million and putting it in the dead cap slot as opposed to using it towards, other players, it honestly made me very, very angry and grinded my gears, but whatever. Guys, Carson Wentz was just traded a couple of days ago to the Indianapolis Colts and will reunite with his former offensive coordinator, now head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, Frank Reich. Returning to Philadelphia is a 2021 third-round pick, 2022 conditional second-round pick that can turn into a first with many Carson Wentz incentives. So I need to hear from the two Eagles haters up above and actually to the right of me, Ian Schraier and Rob DeLuca. Let's start with DeLuca first, because he was in the building actually for the Miracle of the Meadowlands #2. And just because I want to just egg him on with this, because he claims it's not a miracle, but we can have many, many debates about that. DeLuca, your thoughts on this whole trade and the big dead cap hit?
I am having a lot of trouble figuring out who the winner is. Did anyone really win here? I don't know. We'll have to see how the Colts do to see if they become. The Eagles are definitely not a winner of this trade by any means, any way, shape, or form. The Colts could be a winner depending on how Wentz plays in Indianapolis. We will have to see how he works with his receivers, and we will see what he can do. But we have already seen what he can't do in Philadelphia, but we have also seen with many, many other professional athletes, a change of scenery is just what they need. So we will see if going to Indianapolis and playing for the Colts is what Carson Wentz needs to revamp his downhill career.
Keep in mind that also their number one wide receiver, T.Y. Hilton, is a unrestricted free agent as well. Ian Schraier, your thoughts of this trade?
Well, I think to Rob's point, saying that the Eagles didn't win the trade, I don't necessarily want to say that yet. I think in a way on paper, it's really a win for both sides, because what has happened now is the Doug Peterson, who's no longer the Eagles head coach, and the Carson Wentz drama is now out the door. You can now put the spotlight a little bit on Jalen Hurts. You have a new head coach. So that's going to help the Eagles in the long term. But looking at Carson Wentz and what this could mean for him, in 2017, when he was playing under Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator, he had 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Since Reich became the head coach in Indianapolis, 64 touchdowns, 29 interceptions. So you're talking about almost a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, becoming more about a 2.5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's going to go to a team that has a stable offensive line. Let's remember that Carson Wentz got sacked 50 times last year. That's 5-0. He's going to have a lot of offensive weapons as well. I mean, it's no longer going to be the guys that the Eagles picked out of the crowd to come play wide receiver, even though, granted, their undrafted free agents have turned out to be really good players for the Eagles, but guys like Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, and I think T.Y. will eventually come back. And you've got a team right now that's ready to win now. I mean, look, they only lost the AFC South last year because it was on tiebreakers with the Titans. So this is the chance right now for Carson Wentz at 28 years old to rejuvenate his career. Phillip Rivers is out the door. They're going to take a shot on Wentz. If it doesn't work out, the Eagles are the ones that are on for most of that dead cap hit. So if the experiment doesn't turn out to work, then maybe we're talking another quarterback down the road. But for right now, I think this is a good change of scenery for Carson Wentz, and we'll see how this plays out in 2021.
Keep in mind also the 2021 dead cap hit for this Carson Wentz deal is $33.8 million. And then I believe it completely takes a drastic downhill number. I think it's even in like maybe the couple of $100,000s. It's very, very small. So the Eagles basically said, we're gonna wave the white flag for 2021 and just get rid of a player that they traded a lot of draft capital for in 2016 to basically move up a few spots in 2016 or in the 2016 draft. Larry Protakowicz, welcome to the show, sir. Thank you so much for coming on here again, as always. You're a football guy. Let's hear this. Let's hear your perspective on this deal.
I think the deal is great for the Indianapolis Colts. They are a franchise that had their franchise quarterback in Andrew Luck, who decided to retire, going into the 2019 season. And for any franchise, that would kill them. It would set them behind for a number of years. They went 7-9 that first season without him. They worked with Jacoby Brissett and were trying to find the quarterback. They take a shot with Phillip Rivers at the end of his career for this past season. I think Ian or Rob talked about it. They go 11-5 and they lose the division on tiebreakers. And now they bring in a younger guy in Carson Wentz, who you believe still has the talent. He is still young, and you reunite him with his prior coach. I think it's a great situation for Carson Wentz. And if it doesn't work out for the Colts, they didn't give up the entire future. In fact, if it doesn't work out for them, they never give up that first round pick, because at that point he won't have as many starts or appearances that would change the conditional draft pick. I understand what you're saying, that the Eagles are going to wave the white flag. And it might be okay, the $33 million cap hit, but you're not really paying Jalen Hurts a lot of money. But what sucks is Jalen's the guy. It sucks to waste a year of him and not having to pay him to be in a situation where a few years from now you might be in that same boat of having to pay a quarterback and you wasted a year on him.
Yeah, it's rough, especially because they are in a cap hole that is roughly about, right around $45 million. And they just released Deshaun Jackson about an hour ago, just before we got on the air. So you figure his dead cap hit is about $6 million. So that's another six off, or that's another four actually, because he was slated to make 10. So 6 there would be 4, where they can actually have a little bit of spending, or they obviously have to continue shedding money. It's just a matter of where and how they're going to do it. Casey Bryant, this is uncharted territory for me, but let's hear your thoughts about this deal.
I think that the Carson Wentz has to return to form, right? I mean, that's obvious. But I think that the Indianapolis Colts have proven that they can win even when they don't have a prime quarterback, right? Phillip Rivers was washed at the end of his career. Like, he still put up 4,000 yards, but it wasn't the Phillip Rivers that we've seen for years. So as long as Carson Wentz can get to the average level, the Indianapolis Colts can still be a winning team, even if they don't get T.Y. Hilton, because they do still have other receiving options out there, and you have a legitimate number 1 running back in Jonathan Taylor. So Indianapolis still has more weapons than Philadelphia does. So for Carson Wentz, it's really the pressure is all on him. I don't think that Philadelphia is going to be regretting this move. My only regret from this entire trade is that we don't get the incredible meme power that would have been Carson Wentz to Chicago for Nick Foles. That would have been the funniest reversal of fortune, the ultimate, can we hit the undo button, Command Z, please? All right, thank you. Nick Foles back in the rotation. That would have been hilarious. Otherwise, now it's just a regular old savvy football move. Which take it or leave it, I guess.
4,039 yards was his career high in 2019 when he was taken down. I don't want to say taken down, or he was tackled to the ground by Jadeveon Clowney in the wild card round against Seattle. And that was the season where the Eagles went 9-7, and basically Carson Wentz single-handedly brought them back from the dead with undrafted free agents. And at times there were no undrafted wide receivers, excuse me. There was basically no one there. So now I look at this deal and I say to myself that Carson Wentz now is getting out of a disastrous organization. And I'm going to say that, truthfully, from what we've heard, there is a power struggle that is up above the head coach's area. And that has to do with the general manager. And for certain guys that he signed, such as the aforementioned Deshaun Jackson, to a massive deal, as well as Malik Jackson, who was great in Denver when he won the Super Bowl. Okay, that was about 6 years ago. And then he was signed to a massive deal in Jacksonville. And then they thought he signed a lucrative deal to come to Philadelphia and play. Well, we've got a little bit of problems there. And now that there was some rumors where Doug Peterson was not talking with Carson Wentz for possibly 8 to 10 weeks at a time. But then there was also a power struggle between the general manager, the owner, and the head coach, and the quarterback as well. So it almost seems to me like a Dallas Cowboys situation where Jerry Jones puts his hands in everything. And to me, it also seems like this is the part where we're starting to see the general manager put his hands, Howie Roseman, put his hands in certain things. And that's not really a good thing. And that's not a recipe for a win. You have to let these guys do their job. And ever since the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I believe that everything has gotten to their head. And everything now that we are seeing is continuous regression on this team where they have to literally strip it down and start back over. Because, as we just said a couple of seconds ago, they're almost $60 million over the cap. And we all know for damn sure they're not going to release guys like Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, the second best defensive tackle in the game today. I mean, there is a lot of things that are going on there. And I think that it was very good that the Eagles got whatever for Carson, because you don't know if this is an Eagles problem or if this is a Wentz problem. So to get something back for him, and to hear the rumors, guys, that we heard that maybe they would be able to get Tariq Cohen, Nick Foles, possibly a first-round pick in addition to that. But then we hear that the Bears never even made an offer at all. Or even never. Yeah, exactly. What really grinds my gears. Yeah. So we also know that there was some faulty things. We do have a couple of comments here, right here. We got one here. I think the Eagles could have gotten more, but trading Wentz was the right move. Yeah.
Gotten more like Nick Foles.
That is very true. Mic drop. Yeah. They could have gotten Nick Foles. And exactly, you know what? That would have really been the part where this team and this owner and the front office, they can't move on. That's a whole nother story for another time, because we've brought that up a few times. Vincent also says the Eagles have so many holes they need to fill and they have absolutely no cap room. Well, you're 100% right, but realize they're going to keep shedding contracts, and big contracts as well. And now that we just saw Deshaun Jackson get released, we're most likely going to see a player named Derek Barnett get released as well, because there is no dead cap hit on his release, if there is, and that'll be an extra $10 million coming off. Jim Schwartz is no longer there, so he might not even fit in with the new scheme. We don't even know what it is yet, if it's a 4-3 or 3-4. We have no idea. And then also, we forgot another guy by the name of Marquise Goodwin as well, who the Eagles traded for last year, but opted out because of COVID. He's also making $6 million. He will most likely be gone as well because of the likes of Travis Fulgham, John Hightower, and the rest. Does anyone want to comment after my spiel, or shall we move on, fellas?
I think you touched upon all of it there, Joey.
You
I
can't.
don't think there's a subject in the entire Eagles fan base that you haven't touched on, Joey.
But Joey, even with all those cap issues and everything you just said, it's the NFC East. You still got a shot.
Everyone's got a shot in the NFC East.
That's it, baby. As long
That's very true.
even if Dak comes back to Dallas, they got a shot.
Listen, and something else too, Eagles fans that are listening out there, the last time the Eagles went from worst to first, they won the Super Bowl. Okay.
Yeah, but their quarterback was Nick Foles, though. So
That's
right.
true. That is very true.
I will never let that go.
Guys, our childhoods took a big hit last week when Vincent Jackson, former San Diego Chargers wide receiver, as well as Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver, was found deceased in a hotel room in Brandon, Florida. It was a Marriott. He may have died a few days before that he was found. Contributions most likely to CTE they're talking about, but also saying that he had a big alcohol issue. And they don't know what the deal was, but it seems to me like this is another blow, no pun intended, to the NFL. We're bringing back the conversation about CTE, and it's been a long time. And I want to say maybe a year and a half, 2 years since we've really had the conversation about CTE, guys.
I think it's kind of ongoing, Joey. It's all right now. But
I don't mean to interrupt you, but since we've seen a player of V-Jax's magnitude,
yeah. I mean, the name that always stands out in my mind when I think of players that really made the ultimate sacrifice as a result of a chronic, CTE is CTE, but is Junior Seau, who committed suicide as a result of CTE. I think of, even going away from professional football, you think of a former professional wrestler by the name of Chris Benoit, who murdered his wife and child because he was suffering from severe CTE. This is just an ongoing. I mean, I only hope that we can continue to raise awareness for this just degenerative brain disease. And it's very likely that this chronic alcoholism was as a result of Vincent Jackson having CTE. I mean, there have been numerous examples of players that have either murdered their families, or one former player was drank antifreeze. Another one was tased himself to sleep because he couldn't fall asleep because his head hurt literally that much, or people hearing things in their head because their brain is so severely damaged. So yes, alcohol played a factor, Joey, but I'm not so sure that it didn't come as a result of what he was suffering.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And also just another player to bring up where we have heard it was not officially deemed CTE, but we also heard a domestic violence issue. Chad Wheeler, former Seattle Seahawks offensive lineman, who pled not guilty a couple of weeks ago to domestic violence, where he basically strangled his girlfriend to sleep and then went to go into the kitchen and make himself, I believe, a bowl of cereal or a sandwich. And for that to be reported, that's not a funny thing. And then on top of it, she wakes up, she comes in, and he says, "Oh, I thought I killed you," with a smile on his face. And we'll never know that he has CTE or whatever it is until he is on an autopsy table. Casey Bryant, Vincent Jackson, we've heard him all of our lives. What does this death mean to you, not only from a fan perspective, but also from a brain perspective as well?
Well, the 30 for 30 on Junior Seau was one of the most tragic documentaries that ESPN has released of the last couple of years, because you see just how degenerative and volatile the whole situation is, because you can be fine one moment and just snap the next. It really is. It takes a toll. And you mentioned Chad Wheeler. I mean, it's been 6 years since the movie Concussion came out with Will Smith.
Right.
And while I think a lot of people kind of wrote it off as like, oh, there goes Will Smith trying to win another Oscar, or, people didn't maybe see it because they thought it's, who would willingly go to a theater and pay $9 to see how all of your heroes are actively getting harmed. It's still something that I think we all need to force ourselves to see. Because it's a real issue that's going on. It's prevalent not just in football, in every sport. As hockey has had their fair share of enforcers that unfortunately passed too soon. Soccer is a high concussion sport. It's just one of those things that we all need to kind of cognitively recognize. Because Vincent Jackson, I mean, who didn't grow up with the Madden games, right? And Vincent Jackson was great. He was on those Phillip Rivers Chargers teams when they were one of the best teams in the game. When you had him, Antonio Gates, and all these weapons on LaDainian Tomlinson on that side of the ball.
And Casey, just to interrupt for a second, what people forget is he's one of the most underappreciated wide receivers of his generation. When you think of the wide receivers that he also played with, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Chad Ochocinco, think about the receivers and the personalities that he had, that he matched himself up with. He'll never be a Hall of Famer, unfortunately, because his numbers don't suggest it. But just think about how good of a receiver he was with all the other receivers he was competing with.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that first year in Tampa, he was great. And he did that with Josh Freeman as his quarterback. He was fantastic. And you are right. He came up in the era of the diva wide receiver, the number one, look at me. So because of that, what do we think of? Chad Ochocinco, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, that was the TJ Houshmandzadeh, the showy number one receiver. And Vincent Jackson flew under the radar. That's a good point, Ian.
Larry Protakowicz, for you, what did Vincent Jackson mean to you? But also, again, same question that I've brought up the whole time, this degenerative brain disease.
It really is such a terrible thing. And we've also seen it just even in old time players. Like I remember when Frank Gifford had passed away, that there was evidence at that time that he did, have brain issues. And a guy like Vincent Jackson, who didn't stop playing that long ago, with similar equipment, shows that a lot of these guys and these top athletes that we're watching today are risking their bodies and are risking their future post NFL. And that's why, there have been these lawsuits out there from the players union and the retired players, who are looking for awareness and looking for help, treatment, and things of that nature. So I think it's something that's going to unfortunately continue to rear its ugly head until they can find a way to help prevent it. But Casey broke it down. Vincent Jackson was a great football player. He did do it in Tampa as well as in San Diego. It's an unfortunate set of facts to read that, that they did a wellness check on him on the 12th, and they thought he was asleep. So they left and came back a few days later. He was in the same position, alluding to the fact that he may have already been dead for a period of time. So it is sad, but there was a statement that was released by the family spokesperson just the other day, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's, if anything can be learned from his death that might help someone else, Vincent would want that, since he was passionate during his life about impacting others around him. And I think those are good words that people should follow, especially those who play and those who have family members who also play.
Vincent Jackson's brain was also donated by the family to Boston College as well, so they'll be able to figure out if CTE was exactly or officially the cause of death. Ladies and gentlemen that are out there, we are, again, we're going by the reports, and they're saying CTE most likely played a role in it, but it is not official yet. So please do not take our word exactly. We are just reading, and we're basically just repeating what we are reading, and we're discussing about that. So please do not take our words literally. Rob DeLuca, to conclude on this, we grew up with VJax. We grew up seeing VJax, Phillip Rivers to VJax. I never really thought of Josh Freeman to VJax, but I always grew up with Phillip Rivers to VJax at Qualcomm Stadium. That was just the thing. Rob DeLuca, your thoughts on this when you heard it?
Yeah, I was heartbroken. Exactly. It it was a pain. It was a good thing the Giants didn't play those Chargers more often, because that was an ass kicking every single time the Giants did play them on the occasion. It was unbelievable, the connection that those guys had on that team. And it's just a damn shame that when the reports come, if the reports come back with saying CTE was the cause, which is obviously looking more and more likely these days, it's just going to be very heartbreaking. And I believe it was Casey who brought up the movie Concussion. It's already been like 7 years since that movie came out, and I remember seeing it when it first came out. It was remarkable stuff, honestly. I mean, I know it's a movie, but just when you base it off of facts,
it was moving. It was very moving. I can that for sure.
So yeah, anytime you hear that's the likely cause of it, you just that's what I go back to. I go back to Will Smith playing in that movie, playing that doctor, and it's just it's heartbreaking that this is another player from our childhood that's gone far too soon.
Right. Yeah, has since passed on. And the thing that really bugs me is that, we see, especially, I remember in that movie Concussion, in the beginning. Now, Casey, quote me if I'm wrong, but in the opening minutes of the movie, I don't remember which football player it was in the pickup truck that had taken a shotgun and shot himself. And it was a rainy night in the middle of the woods. And you say to yourself that, these guys are the stars that you idolize, right? And all of a sudden, we realize once they're off the football field, they are human, just like you and I. And they all go through different heartaches and different issues that we see now. We see people, stars that you would figure that, they've got their life together. Not everybody is like a Michael Jordan that can afford a basketball team or afford a big mansion that we saw on The Last Dance. People do sleep in hotels. There is issues, money issues. We see it with Antonio Brown. We saw a whole bunch of stuff. But something else, too, that we've also seen, too, is let's not forget, you want to talk about a bunch of head injuries? How about Muhammad Ali? He had Parkinson's disease as well. He died from Parkinson's disease. So, maybe, you never know. We'll never know. But how do we know that Muhammad Ali or other boxers or UFC guys or anything along those lines, CTE could potentially be a part of that as well? And that, to me, is so scary as well. My uncle did bring up there Mike Webster as well.
That's who it's supposed to be. It's not his name in the movie, but that's who it's supposed to be. Who was the first professional football player who came public about it?
Right. Yes. That's. Thank you very much, Uncle Rob, for bringing that up, because that is who exactly, which always sticks in my head whenever I hear CTE. Guys, let's move on to another, I would say more positive topic of conversation, where we are seeing J.J. Watt, quote, seriously considering, end quote, Cleveland, or as I call them, Believeland. More to be done in Cleveland, though, to be tabbed the favorite. That is what I'm going to go with. So now I'm going to ask this question to all of you guys. If J.J. Watt does land in Believeland, are they the favorites in the AFC East? Casey Bryant, go.
AFC North. But go
AFC North, excuse me. I got excited.
I don't think it makes or breaks the Cleveland Browns' chances, because they already had such a good pass rush. They already had Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon put up a strong performance last season. So I really don't think that adding J.J. Watt all of a sudden makes they go from good to great. J.J. Watt is I saw this the other day on Twitter, and it actually makes a lot of sense. J.J. Watt is simultaneously a great player and an overrated player. In that, it's possible to be both. J.J. Watt is one of the best defensive ends in the game. He's also a little overrated in that he's not transcendentally great. It's at the beginning of his career, sure, it looked like he was going to be one of those guys. And when they drafted Jadeveon Clowney, didn't we all think that the Houston Texans were going to be the fiercest defense in the league?
100%. Yep.
How'd that work? J.J. Watt is very good. He's a easy guy to root for off the field. but I don't think he necessarily takes the Cleveland Browns from what was already a strong roster to, oh, they're going to win the Super Bowl now. Now they got J.J. Watt. Of course they are. If anything, it just makes them more narratively appealing because you would have J.J. and T.J. Watt.
I want to just bring up here before we move on here. First off, Vincent, can't thank you enough for putting up all of your comments or sending all of your comments in, because we really love all of the engagement and the audience questions that come in here and the comments as well. I would say that the Browns are the favorites in that division, whether they land JJ or not. So Vincent's got he's got his eyes on the Browns the whole way. Vincent, one more thing I just want to say. I do see the Alshon Jeffrey comment. I will get to that at the end of this segment, because I definitely want to tell you my reasoning why he is still on the roster. Larry Protakowicz, your thoughts on J.J. Watt and the Browns. Do you believe that they are the favorite?
I believe they are the favorite today without even having J.J. Watt. That the Browns team played very well last year, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was their division forever, and I know Baltimore had always competed with them. The Steelers are not the same team that they were so many years ago. Even getting a full season out of Big Ben, finally, right? You can still look back and say, oh yeah, they're not the same team that they were. So it really comes down to how good are the Baltimore Ravens. And, the Ravens are a team that has been, hey, let's run. Let's utilize Lamar Jackson. It worked in year one, didn't work as well in year two. Defenses learn what to do. The Cleveland Browns they've done it right. And I'll disagree with Casey a little bit on JJ. I think JJ is a special player. I think it's important that he has all of these stats, the most tackles and, since such a year, right? But he never plays a full season. Yeah. He always gets hurt. JJ gives it 100%, balls to the wall, and then all of a sudden gets knocked out. That guy's never had an opportunity to play in a playoff game because he's always on the IR by that point. So if he can play, not be the main guy with all the pressure on him and stay healthy, forget about it.
That's what I'm going to agree with Larry there, because that was the thing with Houston's defense. Even when they got Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt was still the guy. J.J. Watt does not need to be the guy in Cleveland, not even remotely close to that. So with Myles Garrett there, Myles Garrett will still be that guy on defense, even with J.J. Watt there. But I agree. I agree that it's not going to make or break the Browns as well. And I'll agree with Vincent's comment here. I think the Browns are essentially division favorites with or without him, because I've said it 85 times on this show. The Steelers were fake, and they are going to continue to be fake. So it does, and so to Larry's point, it does come down to how good the Ravens will be, and they are figuring out the Lamar Jackson strategy here. So a lot of teams are. So I think that this gives the Browns even if they do get them, it's not going to make a huge difference. But right now, this is the Cleveland Browns shot.
Well, something else too, just before we get to Ian here, something I want to bring in here in terms of the Baltimore Ravens as well. You know how we brought up just last week how there was a long shot that, Eric Fisher, when he blew out his Achilles, right, that it wouldn't affect Patrick Mahomes? Well, yes, it kind of did. We have to also look at the fact with the Baltimore Ravens, Ronnie Stanley also blew out his Achilles as well, okay? Mm-hmm. We also have to look at the fact that their offensive line, and that's pretty much the way the game works, okay? We've seen countless times. I'll give you a perfect example. The Philadelphia Eagles, okay? They had 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen go down. Of course, Carson Wentz is going to get sacked 50 times. Of course, because when you're down to your third string and your practice squad guys, you're not going to be able to protect this guy from guys like Myles Garrett or from guys like, all those big caliber players, okay? So, I have to give credit where credit is due in terms of the way that these offensive lines have stuck together for certain teams. Perfect example, the Cleveland Browns. Perfect example, the Indianapolis Colts. A healthy offensive line usually means winning. Ian Schraier.
Can I just say one thing before?
Of course you can. Of course you can.
I understand what you're saying, Joey. But remember Tony Sparano and the Wildcat?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's okay if you don't, because after that, it never worked again.
That's true. That's fair. That's a fair point.
Once they learn it, it's done. You got to move on.
May he rest in peace, by the way. Yeah. Ian Schraier.
I think it's a two-horse race in the AFC North. To Rob's point, I know he always loves calling the Steelers fake, but the Steelers still, entering the 2021 season, will still have one of the best defenses in the league. They're going to have Bud Dupree back. They're going to get healthy, and they're going to still be one of the better defenses in the NFL. The question for the Steelers is on offense. Right now, Juju Smith-Schuster is a free agent. You don't know what you're going to get out of that running game. You don't even know how many games you're going to get out of Ben Roethlisberger. They're in rebuild mode with or close to it, with no salary cap space at all. So for those Steeler fans that are dreaming that J.J. Watt's going to play with his two brothers, they better figure out a lot of different things monetarily to try to make that work. I'm going to give the Ravens a little bit of the edge over the Browns. The reason for that is because they have, and this, I'm going to pull up Vincent's comment here, just saying about how I don't see Baltimore being the division winner. I think they're great defensively, but Lamar has 0 wide receivers, and they're losing Orlando Brown, who requested a trade.
Look at that bottom point. Vincent, you're with me here, buddy. I see.
Yeah, look, I mean, first off, Orlando Brown has to be traded in order for him to go. Number two, let's not forget Marquise Hollywood Brown, and also let's not forget that tight ends in a way have become a second wide receiver. Is what they are. Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in the game right now. J.K. Dobbins has passed Mark Ingram as the starting running back of that team. And for me,
Mark Ingram's going to be released if he hasn't been already.
Yeah. So, what does that tell you for a rookie from Ohio State? And then, look,
and Gus Edwards.
Harbaugh is not a stupid man. I mean, look, when you pull up the game tape, these NFL teams, they know what they're doing. At least in Baltimore, they do, because they have just established such a culture there and such a tradition of winning that for a guy like Lamar Jackson, even though everything with Lamar was RPO, run pass option, that he was able to pick up so many first downs and make so many plays with his legs. I mean, look, we'll see what they do in free agency. We'll see what they do in the draft, but they still have one of the fiercest defenses in the league. And for Cleveland, I still have questions with Cleveland's back seven. I mean, right now they're going to lose their starting slot corner, their starting safety right now to free agency. They're very thin right now in linebacker. I mean, look, if your front four can get to the quarterback every time, that's going to be great if you're going to have J.J. Watt on one side and Myles Garrett on the other. But if they decide to go after a J.J. Watt, they're not going to have a lot of money to spend in other places. Right now, I think they have somewhere in the range of about 20 to 25 million in cap space. So if J.J. Watt takes up and he still wants to be paid like a high-end defensive end, if he still wants to be paid $20 million, where are you allocating those other funds? Maybe you could find and try and take a suitor for OBJ, because there would be no cap hit. You'd take no cap hit of his $15 million. So that would actually be $15 million in relief. But right now, still the edge to the Ravens, because the Browns still have not won that division. And even though they are very, very talented, I still give the Ravens the slight edge.
I think that it would be hilarious to see Rob DeLuca's reaction if the Pittsburgh Steelers, in fact, signed Dwayne Haskins, as it's rumored they might do. Because it came out a couple hours ago that the Post is reporting that they're excited about Dwayne Haskins. If I was
that would be very excited.
If I'm Baltimore or Cleveland, I'm excited about the Steelers getting Dwayne Haskins.
I'm very excited.
It's really crazy to see what's going on here. And back to Vince's point about losing Orlando Brown, who did request a trade as well. Again, who knows, man? I'm going to tell you this. I mean, so you know what, Ian? I want to ask you this. Do you think that the Browns were a flash in the pan from last year?
No. I think they're absolutely a playoff team for 2021. I just want to see them get. I mean, look, they got to the AFC divisional round. I'm not taking anything away from them, but how many GMs, how many coaches? I'm not trying to say that, look, Cleveland had a first-year coach in Kevin Stefanski, going back to Larry's point about Tony Sparano, but they implemented a different offensive system. But Baltimore has one of the best GMs and front offices in the game with Ozzie Newsome. He always finds a way to turn this team into a Super Bowl contender every single year. He always finds a way to work the books and find a way to free up cap space and make trades, and never. In most years, Baltimore never uses their first-round draft pick. In most cases, they always trade back and get more. that's why for me the Ravens just get the slight edge because Harbaugh's been here. He's won a Super Bowl. He knows what I feel like coming off that loss to Buffalo. He knows what he needs to fix for next year, and he's got the weapons there to do it.
Guys, let's keep moving forward here because there was some talk. Actually, Ian Schraier was the one to break this because I didn't see this, but DeAndre Hopkins apparently has been actively trying to recruit the aforementioned J.J. Watt to Arizona. Well, now just by looking at Arizona's cap space, they have about $19 million, and let's not forget, Patrick Peterson is gone. They've mutually parted ways, which is really crazy.
Mhm.
I mean, could they be a suitor? Could J.J. Watt really be going to the desert? Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt? Again, this might be another Cleveland thing where, as DeLuca and all of you guys have said, he doesn't have to be the guy because the guy is already there. Anyone want to take this?
Yeah, sure. I don't think this is going to be what happens. It's an interesting theory because DeAndre Hopkins is there. And
he played with him in Houston.
That's right. So that's what makes it an interesting theory. But the Cardinals aren't there yet. And with J.J. Watt's age, he's looking to get that ring before this is all over. And let's be real, I think all five of us can agree he deserves one before it's all over.
Yeah.
So let's hope. So I would like to see him go somewhere where he can do that. And me personally, I don't think that's Arizona.
I personally don't believe that's Cleveland either yet, truthfully. I think that they still have.
You're not wrong. I don't think it is. I don't think it is either.
Cleveland's still another year or two away.
Yeah.
At least a year, if not two.
Then if you wanted to go to a contender and wanted to win a ring, then a team like Buffalo might be a place to consider.
That would be a great. That'd be
There's a lot of mutual interest there with JJ and Buffalo, and I think that would be a really fun place for JJ to land. You couldn't find two more geographical extremes too between Arizona and Buffalo. But considering what Texas is in right now, they're in deep ice right now. So hey, maybe Buffalo is it's a warm up act for Northern New York.
Right, and just disclaimer that the firm I work for is Buffalo based, and they love the Buffalo Bills, so they love that I've said that. So
Vincent believes that Arizona would be a great landing spot but that is easily the most competitive division in football. That is very true. And now we're going to see what that's all about now that Matthew Stafford is out in Los Angeles now. So we'll see. Larry,
we just got to make like a sixth window for Vincent here. Just build him a cry. Get him a nameplate and invite him on. Turn your camera on, Vincent.
email him the link.
Say it again, Larry.
Email him the link and just get him in.
Yeah.
He could take.
We really appreciate. We really appreciate Vincent coming on here.
He's right. I could just leave.
And he's a Vikings rider, Joey. So we might want to recruit him to ride Minnesota along with Tornatori.
I was gonna say, Vincent, theeasternobserver.com. Anthony, count me in. I'll join. He says that's fantastic. Really, really good stuff, Vincent. One of these days, we definitely love to have you on here. DeLuca, finish your sentence.
I think I did. Didn't I?
We didn't. I was talking over you.
Then make a new one.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll make a new one. Pitchers and catchers are here. Let's talk some baseball, baby.
We're not done yet. Hold on a second.
Yes, we are.
No, we're not done yet. What is this?
First segue.
Yeah.
This isn't a this.
We're not done yet. Hold on a second. No, what do you think this is? No. Hold on.
Casey told me to make a sentence. I made a sentence.
Revolution.
So, because I don't listen, which, I guess a lot of people know this already. Rob DeLuca had messaged me earlier, had messaged us earlier and said, this would be a perfect segue when Casey brought out the Astros jersey. And now, because Casey is the jersey connoisseur and the extraordinaire, there was some talk that at one point the Jacksonville Jaguars would be changing their primary jerseys to teal. Well, it eventually happened. Let's watch the, I would say, rebranding video, and then Casey Bryan is going to let us all have it, and I want to hear his thoughts on the return to teal. Take a look.
I'm sure Larry absolutely loves seeing Sam Darnold get strip sacked in that video. I'm sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need to hear Casey Bryant's comment not only on the video but also on the jersey. Casey, we'll start with the video.
Well, first, for the video, I tell you, the Wire reboot looks great. What dramatic cinematography! What incredible! Why was it strung up like that? Like Spider-Man had been there, I don't understand. But also, I give the video a ton of credit for trying to make the Jacksonville Jaguars tough and impressive. Honestly, they have been for 1 year in their entire franchise's history. Like, you would have to really first, teal is the Jaguars color, right?
Yes.
The white jerseys are boring as anything. The black jerseys need more teal accenting to them to make them more interesting. They just have the one strip on the sleeve. So even the black ones are really kind of boring. So the teal ones are where it's at. And I'm surprised they didn't lean on the teal history, but again, history and the Jaguars don't go together, because what are you going to do? You're going to play this melodramatic Mark Burnell, Maurice Jones-Drew. You're not going to be able
Fred
to get
Taylor. Yeah.
But Casey, now Trevor Lawrence is going to be in teal.
Yeah, guy from the Good Place. Yeah, it's Trevor Lawrence and teal. Sports needs more teal in general. Teal was a '90s thing. Everything else from the '90s is getting a reboot. Why not teal? This was the right move for Jacksonville.
Anybody want to take that? Anybody want to follow up with that?
Well, it's actually funny. I was thinking about Trevor Lawrence and how he would look in teal. And while the video was playing, I went to Trevor Lawrence's Twitter, and he retweeted or commented on a video of him throwing in 2015, and he couldn't even reach the nets because he didn't have a good arm, and they were basically making fun of him. And he's wearing a teal jersey, so it might well be setting itself up.
All that work just to go 3-13. It's a wonderful thing.
It's going to be a beautiful thing, Ian. It's going to be great.
Guys, we're gonna move on to baseball in just a second, everybody. So calm down. But for everyone that is, as we conclude our NFL segment, the Broncos are likely to decline the $18 million option on Von Miller. That would really be crazy to see him moving on out of the Mile High City. But also Richard Sherman says, quote, "It's pretty clear," end quote, that San Francisco wants to move on. So it seems as if those two will be heading out of their respective cities. Ian Schraier.
Yeah, Joey, I just want to jump in there for a second, because the person who had the report initially on Von Miller was ESPN's Dan Graziano, and then Denver insider Benjamin Albright has now refuted that claim, stating that the Broncos are actually still trying to keep Von Miller, but they're hoping to either restructure or extend his deal. You know, again, it would have been big news if he was going to hit the free agent market. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. He's the foundation of what was a bottom 10 defense in the National Football League last year. And let's keep in mind, he lost his season, 2 or 3 days before week 1. Yeah. So they need him more than Von needs the Broncos at this point.
Yeah. This would also mean a lot more if the Broncos could win more than 5 games in a season. So
hey, listen, let me tell you something. You know what we really have yet to see is Von Miller and Bradley Chubb on the same field, because let's not forget, Bradley Chubb blew out his ACL 2 years ago. And then Von Miller, when they were supposed to play last year, Von Miller, I think, played maybe 2 or 3 games, and then that was it. So you never know. Vincent also I can see Von Miller heading to a competitive team like Green Bay. Same goes for Watt. Larry, didn't you say that a couple of what was it? I think it was about Watt last week.
Yes,
Green Bay.
I was
brought that up.
That's exactly what he said.
So
he was commenting on the show. Yeah,
you never know. Guys, let's conclude football with this. I want to just go back to what Vincent had brought up earlier. I know we're basically spotlighting him the whole way, and we can't thank you enough, but I just want to bring up this one comment and answer that question for you. I'm stunned Alshon Jeffrey is still on their roster, the Eagles, that is. They will probably trade Ertz, and they should get a lot of value, but who knows after trading Wentz for almost nothing to a QB-needy team. 100% I agree with you there. The reason why Alshon Jeffrey is still on the team is because his cap hit is only $6 million. His dead cap hit is 10 as of right now. So it would be a -$4 million range there. It would be stupid for Howie Roseman to do that. But guys, let's move forward here. Spring training is here, as DeLuca brought up earlier and rudely interrupted all of us, including Casey Bryant.
Watch it, Joey.
Listen, all I know is that regardless of how much snow is outside, and after this show, I have to go outside and shovel. Okay. Spring is almost here. And I know I just spoke to our good friend Anthony Iapoce as well, Chicago Cubs hitting coach. He's out in Arizona. They're getting ready to get things started. So really good things there. Guys, just last week, not too long after we actually signed off, Fernando Tatis Jr. and the San Diego Padres, they agreed on a 14-year extension, worth $330 million, the largest term in Major League Baseball history. Not money, the longest year term. I mean, again, Casey's got the Astros jersey, so he's baseball ready to go. Let's start with you, Casey. This is 14 years. Manny Machado money.
It is, and honestly, I was debating. I know that we had the AL West on tap on the rundown at least, so I was debating whether or not to go with this or my Tony Gwynn Padres jersey. So we're saving them for later points. I only have 85 jerseys, so I'm sure that in my next 85 appearances on this show, I'll be able to cycle through a lot of them. But I think that for the San Diego Padres, it's a bold commitment. Going after Fernando Tatis and locking him down before they have to. Baseball is a very strange sport when it comes to free agency and their contracts because you have about 7 years of team control off the bat. It's not like a sport like hockey where you have 3 years on your entry-level contract, or football where you just have a couple of years and then you're a free agent and you're good to go. Baseball, you have arbitration dates, you have team retention for years and years and years because of how long it takes to get to Major League Baseball. So for the Padres to shell out this kind of money with Fernando Tatis Jr., they're committed to him being their face, and they don't want any drama. That's the one thing that they want to avoid. And they're sending a message to everyone else that we're not just committed to winning for a year or two. You know, if you remember the Miami Marlins a few years ago when they brought in Jose Reyes and Mark Burley and and Ozzie Guillen as their manager and Heath Bell and all these players as in like, oh, we're going to win. We're going to lock down Giancarlo Stanton for long-term too. And what did they do? They blew it up a year later. This is the Padres sending a message to the rest of baseball where there's about 20 teams that are flat broke right now and refusing to spend. They're sending a message that we're not just here to win 2021. We're here to win 2025, 2028. We're going to be a perennial contender, and we're not going to blow it up like a team like Miami, which is a great step forward for the Padres franchise, which has been biding their time and lying in the weeds in kind of mediocrity for a long time. They're changing the tides, and they're becoming a new franchise, and they know that they have to do that to keep up with the Joneses, to keep up with the LA Dodgers. So they're taking those steps. Meanwhile, the Colorado Rockies have not spent a single cent on guaranteed free agency money. Which to me is the funniest thing I've ever heard, to not spend a single cent on free agency. So good for the Padres.
Something I want to bring back up here before we move around the little rectangle here. You brought up Mark Burley. Do you remember, Casey, and for all of our guys here, do you guys remember when Josh Johnson was supposed to be the number one?
Sure.
Miami?
Josh Johnson, low-key, was filthy for 2 years, and then went to Toronto and still was okay, but then blew out his arm. He's one of those guys that always flew under the radar. And
was it Jose Fernandez before Jose Fernandez? I mean,
yes.
just obviously with a much better end result, but that's besides the point. But that's what he was. That's what he was.
The Marlins produced a lot of like really good pitchers in that window of like 2003 to 2010, where you had the rise of Josh Johnson, but then you had AJ Burnett come through their system. Dontrell Willis was good for a few years.
Dontrell Willis, the Long Island Ducks legend, Dontrell Willis.
I mean, the Marlins were so good. I remember in high school, this is a random tangent, I know, but Josh Johnson when I was sitting next to my friend Corey in physics class, we would never pay attention to the actual physics being taught. We would always like make brackets of by division of like, all right, who's the best pitcher in the AL West? All right, who's the best pitcher? And Josh Johnson and Ricky Romero were two guys that we just had huge crushes on for some reason. I guess we just had a thing for sinker ballers. One of those things. So yeah. That's Josh
Ricky Romero, legendary number 47 up north of the border. Crazy stuff. Rob DeLuca, let's get to you here. What do you think about Fernando Tatis and mainly the Padres?
Well, I think it's incredible that the Padres are finally making their move, and they're going to be a dangerous team. And it is still funny that all this money they're spending, and they're still not even the best team in their division, let alone the NL. It is absolutely insane what they have had to do just to try and compete with the Dodgers, and they're still not there. It's nuts to me, but that doesn't mean when come playoff time that maybe the Dodgers don't choke, and then that leaves room for the Padres. But these are just things we don't know. But right now, I'd still have the Dodgers winning the NL West by a comfortable amount, but we'll touch on that next week. And I think the Padres are definitely going to be a big threat all season long.
Let me tell you something. I just want to chime in here one quick thing. And I know Ian Schraier is most likely probably going to throw his computer once I say this. But we have to realize, DeLuca, you know how you were just saying that they're not the best team in the National League West? But they have an X factor on their team that is big, like very big. And he's most likely going to be their number 5 starter, or maybe not. His name is Chris Paddock, and that is Ian's boy right there. And he is going to be the guy that brings San Diego to the promised land. Listen,
I'm seeing three angry.
Stop trying to instigate me because it's not working.
Listen, AJ Preller. Listen, I will tell you this: AJ Preller, okay, is
Joey, I've got 3 Mets fans here with 3 different faces to what you just said.
AJ Preller is getting a second chance of spending the Padres' money. Okay. We remember all of this. Okay. We're going to get to Larry in just a second. We remember when AJ Preller traded the world for Justin Upton, BJ Upton, now known as Melvin Upton Jr. He also, I believe, he got Will Myers. Will Myers was, I believe, just that year as well. He also traded for Craig Kimbrell as well. So there were a lot of things that, obviously they weren't locking them down, but it was similar to what Casey had brought up earlier was, the trades that Miami had taken in. San Diego did the same exact thing. But this is the first time that we are seeing the largest term in Major League Baseball history come out of San Diego. And it all started a couple of years ago when Eric Hosmer was signed out of free agency from Kansas City, and people were saying, what is AJ Preller and the Padres doing? They are far from being contenders. They're close. They're getting there. Larry, your thoughts?
I want to bring it back to Paddock for a minute. Remember in 2019 when he tweeted and made comments about how he wasn't Rookie of the Month and Pete Alonso got it over him. And then at the end of the season, he was back in the minors. I want to make sure everyone remembers that.
No, Larry, Joey just does it to get on my nerves. That's the only reason he says it, because I'm not going to curse on this show, but I poo-poo all over Chris Paddock every time he mentions it. So. Chris Paddock was the ace of the future of that rotation.
Ian's poo-poo of the week. I want to hear this on a weekly basis. Ian poo-poo.
Or like Chris Pudick, am I right?
Mic drop.
Going back to signing Tatis. First of all, it's so crazy that when his contract expires, the Mets still owe one more year of Bonilla money.
He's right.
July 2035 is the last payment to Bonilla, so go figure on that. But this is a really good idea that San Diego has decided to do. They never have to worry about signing him to a big contract again. Now, obviously, these are guaranteed contracts, right? So he all of a sudden hurts himself 2 years from now or decides he's not going to be a good ball player anymore. Then the whole thing's washed up and he's Rick DiPietro, right? But
Oh, we strikes back.
Larry, I owe you a couple after that comment, pal. Thanks.
But the big thing here is this is exactly what the players' union wants, right? Players, the union, they've talked about how, there's these 6 years, right? 6-7 years or so, where basically the players are getting paid nothing, right? They're in their prime. Then it's time for them to get a contract. And then some teams don't want to pay them, or they say, hey, listen, the guy's out of his prime already. Why are we going to give him money, right? So this might be an example of what the union's going to want on good players to push for something like this. There's no worry about arbitration. And there's no question of, oh, my God, now we have to worry about paying this guy. And listen, it's an average of $24 million. Come the 2028 season, the 2030 season, will that be a lot of money in comparison to other contracts? Look at how much Bauer got, this year. So it might be worth it.
That's true.
These contracts are starting to look a lot like the early 2010s NHL contracts when the Devils were handing out like 17 years to Ilya Kovalchuk. You understand I'm going to be 40 when Tatis Jr.'s contract is up? I look like I'm 16. And I'm maybe by that point I'll look 20.
How old we are.
Yeah.
It's really crazy to see that not only we've gone through 10 years already of Albert Pujols' contract. Do you guys remember that? We were what? 16 years old?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I know Rob DeLuca and myself, 16 years old at the time. We're about to be 26 years old, and that contract is about to conclude after this year. Longest contract ever given out was, at the time, Albert Pujols. And then you had Bryce Harper. And then you had Manny Machado. Or, well, in there you had Mike Trout, obviously. And now you have Fernando Tatis. Really crazy stuff to see these mega contracts.
Right? Isn't Stanton's contract?
That's true. That's true. Yes. Yep. Forgot about Stanton's contract as well.
Forget about Stanton. So
yeah, right. Last year in the 2020 shortened season, he hit 260. He had a 266 batting average, 571 slugging percentage, 937 OPS, 17 home runs, 45 RBIs in a shortened 2020 season. DeLuca Vincent agrees with you. He also believes that the Padres are there, but the Dodgers are on a whole nother level. The chemistry that the team has is unlike any other team in baseball.
So true.
Yeah,
it really is something else.
But what we need to see, though, is that we have to realize, Vincent, and to all of the viewers that are out there, and I know we said this countless times, the Dodgers won the World Series last year in a shortened season. Can they get through a 162-game season and still be able to win the World Series? Can Clayton Kershaw's back hold up 7 months? I don't know. We'll have to find out.
Tune in for our NL West preview.
Yeah, exactly. Tune in. Yeah, we'll see about that in just a second. But ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:38 here on the East Coast. Alongside my guys Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, Casey Bryant, Larry Patakowitz, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We can't thank you enough for joining us here on this Friday evening and spending a couple hours of your Friday night here with us on the Eastern Observer. Let's keep in mind also this show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Visit them at blackcatsnyc.com. Also, please do not forget to subscribe to us by searching the Primetime Rundown on the following platforms: Google Play Store, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on YouTube by searching I-95 Sports Network. Really, really good stuff. We can't thank everyone enough for being here with us today. Please subscribe to us because we would love to have you back, have everyone back here on our shows moving forward. Guys, our sports updates, we really have not been doing well with it because I'm terrible. I'm a terrible host, so I apologize there. Ian had wrote in here about our 718 sports update. The Cincinnati Reds, they overhaul their broadcast booth, which is pretty true. Reds royalty and Hall of Fame shortstop Barry Larkin is going to join John Sadak as the new color analyst part-time. He's going to be switching off with our good friend Chris Welsh as well. So really, really good stuff there. And also, it looks like here that he added in here, Michael Kay and John Sterling will reunite for 2 spring training games in the booth, first time in 20 years. That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I threw that in there last second because that broke around 6:45 that Michael Kay announced on his show that for the first time in 20 years, that dynamic duo is coming back together, even if just for 2 spring training games.
Yeah, really amazing to see Michael Kay and John Sterling, as obviously Sterling is getting up there in age. He is over 80 years old. Really glad to see that he will be able to get back into the booth with Fordham legend and Yankees legend Michael Kay. Guys, let's keep moving forward here in the world of baseball. This is something that we are just starting this week, and I actually have Ian Schraier and Rob DeLuca to thank for this, because this is really something that I think is probably the coolest thing that those two came up with, and that is we're going to begin our 6-week MLB divisional preview, where it's going to go all the way until March 26th. And yes, March 26th, ladies and gentlemen, is going to come real quick. So today we're going to start off with our first, or which division is up to bat first, the American League West. And that's exactly why Casey Bryant also has his Astros uniform on. And we're going to get started with we're going to go in order of who was from last to first. So we're going to do, save the best for last, obviously, in the division, which was the Oakland Athletics. And who finished in dead last in the American League West? The Texas Rangers. So we're going to get started with that here, guys. And I really want to start with, whoever it might be. Well, let's throw Larry into this one here. Texas. I'll give you my prediction here. Texas is an absolute dumpster fire, and their highest prospect is ranked number 63 on MLB.com, a third baseman by the name of Josh Jung. They really have nothing going for them right now, and it's going to be many, many years until they do. Larry, do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What do you see with Texas?
The best thing that Texas has going for them this year is that they're finally going to open their new ballpark for their own fans to be able to go in and see a game. And you know what? In Texas, if they decide they're going to do 10% capacity, 25% capacity, that's fine, because they still might not be able to fill it up.
Not a point there. Wow.
Like me as someone, I was at the first game at Citi Field. I was excited, even when my team wasn't that good and they opened a new ballpark, right? To be a Texas fan and to watch people go to your ballpark for the World Series and for the playoffs for the first time, that's kind of tough. But then to see that your team really hasn't improved in any way, with other teams in that division, like Houston, like Oakland, and you know what, a team like the Angels, I was going to say Anaheim, but LA, that has Mike Trout, and at least Seattle has things going for them, with some young talent. That Texas, they might as well be like Colorado, not spend a cent on outside free agents. It's going to be a tough year for Texas.
The crazy thing also is that, just remember, a few years ago, they were trading for guys. They were also in the World Series just not too long ago. Okay. Cole Hamels, Prince Fielder, Ian Kinsler, Adrian Beltre. Okay.
Michael Young was another one way back
Michael
when.
Young, we can't forget about him as well. Shin-Soo Choo as well.
I like this game. It's making me feel old.
Yeah.
Guys that are all out of baseball at this point, like Prince Fielder and Ian Kinsler. Nelly Cruz was on those World Series teams.
That's true.
He's still going strong. So
that's true. That's true.
Nelly Cruz, shout out.
Well, let's not forget also, how about C.J. Wilson or Martin Perez, who is now on the Red Sox right now. But yeah, no, Texas, guys, has nothing really going for them. Anyone want to chip in here? Someone take it away.
Well, I think that you're ignoring their big acquisition today. I think that you're kind of glossing over the fact that they brought in their new ace. They dealt Lance Lynn. I get it. Rangers, they're upset. I lost Todd Frazier. He signed a minor league deal with the Pirates. I get it. You're looking for a new name. You're looking for someone to lead the franchise. I got someone for you. How about Tyson Ross, baby? 44 career wins. Don't ask me about the career losses. That's not important. What's good attitude? Tyson Ross.
He's a winner because he's won games. Yes. That makes
He has confirmed wins. He was an all-star back in 2014, but he was an all-star. So now the Rangers added an all-star pitcher. Texas Rangers to the moon, baby.
I'll add on to Casey's point about Texas. Yeah, they traded Lance Lynn. They also swapped Chris Davis, got Chris Davis and sent Elvis Andrews over to Oakland. That rotation's an absolute mess. Like names like Jordan Lyles and Dane Dunning, like reclamation projects. And at this point, I mean, the only couple of bats you really see in that lineup are guys that are consistent with their home run and RBI numbers, and that's Joey Gallo and Ronette Odor. But the problem is they give you home runs and RBIs, but they give you nothing in terms of average, and they give you high strikeout numbers. It's a team that
Davis will fit in great there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that's going to finish in last place again. There's really not a lot of bright spots about Texas.
Anyone want to add to that? DeLuca, do you want to finish that off?
Yeah, sure. I'll be brief. These guys are all correct. Texas is not going to be a good team by any stretch of the word, and they're very far away from ever being good again. It's going to be a very, very brutal time to be a Texas Rangers fan. But as Larry said, at least they got the new stadium. They can see all the gizmos and gadgets that they got going on. So maybe it'll at least be a cool experience when they go see the Rangers lose 12-3.
Again, as we brought up too, the thing that really bugs me and the thing that really scares me as well is the farm system that's in Texas as well. They've been pretty porous for the better part of 4 years now. And you would figure that following those 4 years that they would be selling off certain assets, but they have not really been selling off these assets because they've let them walk in free agency. And to see that you have the number 63 ranked prospect as the highest prospect in your system, not only is this team doomed for the short term, this team might be doomed for the I would say in between short and long. So like right in the middle. That's not good. You would figure that after losing for so many years, this team could maybe accrue some prospects. And they can't right now. Ronette Odor used to be the second baseman when Adrian Beltre was, still playing. He's now at the hot corner. How's he going to do with it? No Elvis Andrews there to protect him just in case. Guys, let's move on to Seattle because Seattle actually, I can't believe it. I personally believe that they're going to be better than Texas. James Paxton is back. D. Gordon signed a minor league deal in Cincinnati. And Jared Kelenic should be ready to go. Ian Schraier, I want to start with you because Jared Kelenic was a part of that Robinson Cano deal heading back the other way. And I remember that Mets fans were crying big time. So I want to hear some Mets fans here saying or seeing that Kelenic is going to be playing this year and most likely will be in a starting role at some point this year with a decent, on paper, roster.
The Seattle Mariners, to me, feel like they've been in a rebuild for what feels like 2 decades at this point. I know their general manager, Jerry Dipoto, former Mets pitcher, by the way, said that there was really a big step back in development last year in the shortened 2020 season. So more than likely, we're going to see more of the same. I got the Mariners finishing in 4th place. I think they're going to show some improvement. I think a lot for the Mariners in terms of looking forward to the future is contingent once Jared Kelenic gets the promotion to the majors. The word is he's probably not going to start with the team on opening day, but maybe we'll see him by May 1 at that point. I mean, they're still waiting on some rising arms. An old Met, Justin Dunn, a former Yankee, Justice Sheffield. Yusei Kikuchi has not panned out in his first few years with the Mariners at all. I think having a veteran pitcher like James Paxton is going to help. But again, they're just waiting on these young arms to finally find form. They haven't done it yet. And then on the other side with the bat, there isn't a lot to look forward to with that lineup. I mean, Kyle Seager has really been the mainstay of that lineup. He's been the most productive hitter in that lineup. He's really the all-time Mariner at this point of the 2010s. He's a free agent at the end of the year. Rumors are he's probably not going to stay. He's probably a trade deadline candidate at this point. And Mitch Haniger, who's a solid outfield piece, can never stay healthy. So, again, it's still they're still in rebuild form. Hopefully, at some point, the Mariners can figure out a way to turn around. They couldn't even figure out how to turn around when Felix Hernandez was there. So, I'm just hoping for the Mariners that the better days are coming. But I mean, I think they'll win. I think they'll surprise some people, but it's not going to be a great year for the M's in 2021.
Who's taking the next one?
Ian, let me piggyback off this one real quick. I think Ian's right here. They're definitely gonna. I also got them in fourth place. This is definitely not their time. But I do agree with that last point there. I think the better days are coming. It's a couple more years away. I'd say about 3 to 4 more years, but they are definitely going in the right direction. They do have a lot of promising development down in the minors, but it did get a little slow. It did get majorly slowed down, so that's why it's now pushed back from like 2 years to now more like 3 to 4 years from now. So it's going to be a little bit of time for the Seattle Mariners, but if they stay patient, stay the course, just keep rebuilding, they'll be back.
Yeah, that's pretty much the scenario that they're in. It's not like they have that other big player where they say, hey, we can trade this guy mid-season to try to get prospects. They pretty much have prospects. You have J.P. Crawford. Okay, he's good with the glove at shortstop. His bat's not really much. But they have the young pitchers. They have a guy like Kalenic who they're hoping can be a special player. But it is going to take time. So, yeah, fans should stay the course. They are a fourth-place team. I think they'll surprise some people and win some games on some days where you think they don't have a shot. But long haul, especially 162, no way.
They do
finish this one off.
Sure, they do have at least Kyle Lewis, who's an exciting player to watch. He's a young outfielder, reigning rookie of the year. So I do think that he at least provides a little bit of personality to an otherwise pretty banal team. Adding James Paxton helps. Adding Ken Giles, as they did today, helps. They also brought in Rafael Montero, who is a Mets legend. The guy who's always just, one more stint in the minors, he'll be fine, and then he'll come back better than ever. Actually was converted into a reliever and wasn't terrible in Texas.
Yeah.
Showed some improvement. So if utilized in the correct scenarios, could be useful for Seattle. So you do have.
Remember, he wasn't good enough at Texas to keep him.
Right. Well, yes. But he's worth giving a chance to, at least. The Mariners are all about trying to get enough guys to get people in the ballpark without actually being a good franchise, which is why they're going to rely so heavily on Dunn, Kelnick, and Sheffield when they do come up, because they better hope that that's Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey, and Randy Johnston coming through those doors, because otherwise they're in trouble. The greatest thing to happen in the last, I'll say 20 years since the 116 win season, best thing that happened to the Mariners has been King Felix's no-hitter in 2012, John Boyce's documentary that won the award last year for SB Nation, and that's kind of it. So for the Mariners, it's all about looking ahead. They will be interesting, but not good.
Ichiro.
It's a sad story. It's a sad story with Ichiro.
Do we gotta bring it up?
Ichiro is a Shakespearean tragedy and same with Felix Hernandez of just wasted potential.
Listen, Casey, what did we say? What did we say a couple of weeks ago? I think you were on the show too. New Baltimore Orioles ace, Felix Hernandez. Okay.
You're right.
Let's not forget that. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was last week.
That was that last week. Yeah, I'm completely off. Guys, let's keep moving forward here with our teams within the AL West. The next team that finished right in the middle of the pack was the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Again, this is a team that has one giant question mark on it, and I think also that you look at their on paper, they still have a ton more work to do. But you have to give credit where credit is due. And I got to tell you, I will start this one off here because I have criticized Art Moreno, their owner, okay, a lot. And the reason why is because I have a personal relationship with many of Major League Baseball scouts, okay? And to see him fire essentially his entire scouting department not only felt like it was a stab in the heart of me, but also stab in the heart of fellow connections that I've made over the years. Their jobs are no longer there. Okay. That was the pandemic. I digress. But what they've done in terms of opening their piggy bank is pretty good. Okay. You finally have, I would say, and please, for those that are out there listening, tell me if I'm wrong. This is the most complete team that Mike Trout has been on.
Can I tell you that you're wrong already?
You sure can. But I will tell you right now. That is no. Hold on.
First, let me
finish it.
I'm going to send it back to you first.
That's fine.
Tell me why you think this is the most complete team in Mike Trout's career.
Well, let me tell you something. I actually didn't even finish. So let me finish first, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
Jose Quintana is now their number one. Okay. You have now new or former Baltimore Orioles ace Alex Cobb. Okay, who won 2 games, if I'm not mistaken, Casey.
Thank you,
and
Casey.
lost, I think, 21 or 22.
I love the recurring trend now of Baltimore Orioles ace, because we're eventually going to work it back to like former Baltimore Orioles ace Daniel Cabrera, and it's going to be the best recurring segment.
Well, let me tell you something. You can thank your good friend Rob DeLuca for coming up with these with the aces and the legends, because if it wasn't for him. Yeah, him calling those out.
You're gonna have recurring we're gonna have the joke of Baltimore Orioles ace Chris Tillman and Baltimore Orioles ace Daniel Cabrera and Baltimore Orioles ace Eric Bedard. Like I'm good to keep this going.
Their new closer, Raisel Iglesias. Alex Cobb. We'll see if he can rejuvenate his career. Jose Iglesias is also there as well. We all know about the Andrelton Simmons issues during the offseason, where there were times he was contemplating suicide, where he was debating on ending his life because of the pandemic. But I personally believe that we're starting to see, in terms of a most complete team, this is it. Mike Trout has not been to the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
Once.
No, you got to let me finish my sentence, everybody. One time he was in the playoffs. One time. Here, this is the best that they're going to get. Last year, when you had Andrew Heaney and Dylan Bundy as your 1 and 2, at least you could put in someone. I don't want to call Jose Quintana a guy that would, make or break the team, but you could have a decent Andrew Heaney as your number 3. You can finally get some wins. Anthony Rendon is now there. You now have proven bats in the lineup. Ian, tell me why you think I'm wrong. Let's hear this.
Well, because the 3 of the proven bats that are supposed to help stretch your lineup, that are probably batting 6th, 7th, and 8th in that lineup, are all 35 at this point or older. Albert Pujols, Justin Upton.
Albert Pujols is not batting 6th, 7th, or 8th. He is not doing that.
No, either way. And Dexter Fowler. Okay. To me, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, they are the team in this division that annually bothers me the most. Always. Because we always set these high expectations. They brought in Joe Madden last year. The projections were going to be that the Angels were finally going to be competitive, and then they weren't competitive. They were in the wild. Last year we had the expanded playoffs, and they were going to be maybe the 7-8 seed until there was about a month left in the season, and then just like the Angels always do, they fold. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim are literally the Russian roulette of Major League Baseball, because you don't know what you're going to get every single year. Aside from Mike Trout, that entire team is inconsistent. That team has not had, you want to talk about aces of the Baltimore Orioles pitching staff, that team has not had an ace since Jared Weaver was there.
That's correct. But they also have not had a decent pitcher a decent number 1 since Weaver.
Look, they've tried. They've tried that, because they invested how much money in C.J. Wilson to get him to be their ace. They have tried. They brought over Shohei Ohtani to do that.
Yeah, that's a problem
with a dangling elbow.
The problem is Ohtani's hurt. I do like the Quintana signing, because I think it gives them some much needed depth behind guys like Andrew Heaney and Dylan Bundy. I do like the Raisel Iglesias move, because I think they're going to be a 500-ish team. So it's nice to no longer say we're going to count on Hanso Robles to be shutting down games for the Angels. So I think that's big. But the fact that you're still going to be depending on guys like Pujols, Justin Upton, and Dexter Fowler to be driving in runs at the tail ends of their careers. Look, did Anthony Rendon have a good year last year? Yeah, but I don't think it was, even though in a shortened year, I don't think it was anywhere at the expectations for what they signed him to. And then Ohtani's always hurt. So for me, the Angels are always that middle of the pack team. They always miss the playoffs by a couple games. I think if things fall right for them, I think the Angels, I definitely don't want to say that they're a complete team yet because I don't think they're there, but I think they're competitive enough to at least be in that wild card conversation with maybe the White Sox, the Blue Jays. I don't think they'll get to the playoffs, but I think they can at least be competitive enough within a very weak division to at least make themselves known throughout baseball this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And just for those folks that are out there listening, I never said also that this team was good enough to win the division or anything along those lines. This is the only thing that I've said is that this is one of the, if not the most complete team that Mike Trout has been on in Los Angeles.
I get what you're saying, Joey.
What it comes down to is that, yes, they're, regardless of them bringing in guys that are 35 plus, they are still trying. And for once, at least, and as Casey brought up, yes, since that CJ Wilson disaster blew up in their face, who really have they relied on? Shohei Ohtani and his dangling elbow? Listen, he is the first player since Babe Ruth to be able to play the outfield or any position, and also being a pitcher. So what are we going to rely on him for? Are we going to rely on him for, as a pitcher? If you look at the rotation right now, Dylan Bundy, who another Baltimore Orioles legend, by the way, Casey, Dylan Bundy, Andrew Heaney, Jose Quintana, Shohei Ohtani, and Alex Cobb. I don't know, maybe like in 2014, that was great. But again, this is a very low risk, high risk, high reward roster. I mean, like I said, I personally believe, and I agree with Ian here, they are going to be middle of the pack. They're not going to do whatever they're supposed to do, but this is, in terms of on paper, the most complete team that I think that Mike Trout has been on, excluding that one playoff appearance that they made it to. Guys, let's keep moving forward here. Who was next on the Angels chart? Anyone?
I'll piggyback off you there, Joey. I mean, look, you're not wrong. This is definitely one of the most complete teams for Mike Trout. Not that that's saying much. It's not.
Exactly, because he hasn't been there in 8 years.
This team is going to finish in third place.
For sure.
Not a question. They might have a winning record, but I don't know if they'll make – I don't think they're going to make the playoff. But, yeah, my one curious point, you kind of touched on it there a little bit, Joey, is the move of Alex Cobb. And with, Ohtani and his little injury history now, you got to wonder if the move for Cobb is to kind of take Ohtani out of the rotation and maybe not use him anymore back then, and keep his high-powered offense going to avoid these arm injuries that he's getting while pitching. So I think that could be a reason they went for Cobb. We'll see if I'm right. But right now the depth chart has Cobb as like your rotational sixth man, but we'll see if I'm right. I think that's where I would, at least that's what I would do.
Who's next?
Is it me? I think
sure, Larry. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I personally feel bad for Mike Trout because he is the game's best player, right? Baseball wants him to be the face of the league. He's done all the right things. He signed the long-term contract. I mean, it sucks he's an Eagles fan, but but besides that, they were trying to build a team and they took a shot with CJ Wilson, and other guys a few years ago, and it didn't work out. But it sucks that they can't invest more money to try to make the team better for him. Without the expanded playoffs, it's likely that they're not going to be in the postseason again this year. If it was expanded, I feel like they would have a shot. Trout's still a special player. They have some good young guys on that team. There's they also have a guy like David Fletcher, who I know we didn't really talk about, but he's a guy who can hit for average. Not going to have a lot of power, but maybe they can get something going. But this is a two-way race in this division. They're a third place team, and hopefully they can make some money and spend it next offseason.
Casey Bryant to conclude the LA Angels.
The one other thing that I was considering is that the Angels have needed an ace, and I think at this point they've tried to get the ace, as mentioned before with CJ and with Shohei, but they also have gone after some other guys and swung and missed in free agency. They went after Garrett Cole, and Garrett Cole laughed in their face. They went after Trevor Bauer, and Trevor Bauer went so far as to keep them in the final 3 before settling on the Dodgers. Because he wanted to win a ball game once in a while. So I think that they have tried to get the pitcher, and the pitchers are recognizing that this is a pitching barren team, and no one wants to go to. They see what's happening to Mike Trout's career, and it's withering away. Ian called them the Russian roulette of baseball. Are you guys familiar with the movie Money Plane?
No.
Well, but Money Plane is an Oscar-eligible film. Which it stars Edge, the rest, and Kelsey Grammer of Frasier fame. Cinematic masterpiece. And the story is that Edge and his crew of grifters go up to the Money Plane to try and rob the house. It's a casino on a plane. Now you might be thinking to yourself, that's a terrible idea for a casino. You're right. But there's a scene where Matthew Lawrence, brother of Joey Lawrence, the dude from Boy Meets World and Blossom, that 90s legend, Matthew Lawrence, plays Russian roulette and blows his brains out. He goes, I can't lose! And then he puts the gun in his mouth and he swallows a bullet. That's the Anaheim Angels in a nutshell, proudly proclaiming that there's no way that they can waste another year of Mike Trout's prime before not only blowing their brains out, but blowing their brains out in Money Plane.
I was thinking when you were
that's quite an analogy.
Wow.
When you said robbing, when you said that, I immediately I was going back in history and I was thinking like DB Cooper. I was thinking like something along those lines, like a air heist or something along those lines. But
this is so much worse. This is so much worse.
I thought you said it wrong. I meant Money Train with Wesley Snipes. That's a good one.
Oh, no. This is a different kind of... See, Money Train makes sense because trains generally are flat and, there's not a whole lot of turbulence and people can play cards like that scene in The Sting where they're playing the cards on the train. Great scene. Casinos in the air don't make any sense whatsoever, which is why it's a hilarious movie. Highly recommend. It's on Amazon Prime.
All right.
The Houston Astros. No George Springer. George Springer is now north of the border. He spurned the New York Mets, and he went north. And their infield is still intact. Their garbage cans are still intact as well. Our guy Joe Espada is there, still bench coach behind our good friend Dusty Baker, Big Dusty. And now you've got a big hole in the lineup, and more specifically in the leadoff spot. Ian Schraier, let's start with you here. Houston Astros, where do they go now post George Springer era?
Astros are a very interesting team, and I actually have them winning the American League West this year. And that's only because, garbage pails be damned. I think that when you look at who the A's lost in terms of losing a Liam Hendricks and trying to, still patchwork that lineup together with Matt Chapman and Matt Olson and Marcana. I know we're going to get to the A's in a second. The momentum that we saw the Astros build in the postseason, to me, gives them the slight edge over the A's as we head into a full 162 game season. We're not in a sprint; it's a marathon. We're going to play 162 full games, and for me, that gives the Astros the edge. The two keys for me for Houston winning that division is Yordan Alvarez and Zach Greinke. Alvarez is key just because they lost Springer, and last year he only played in 2 games before he got hurt and then lost the rest of the season. So he is a impact bat that can hit for power, that can drive runs in. So they're going to need him to produce almost at the same level that George Springer was producing in terms of getting on base. But in this case, Altuve and Correa are kind of more going to set the table, and Alvarez is going to be more the player and Brantley are going to be more the players that need to drive him in. On the rotation side, you saw a lot of positives that came out of their rotation with guys like Jose Urquidy and Framber Valdez. But this is a rotation that after Zach Greinke, and Greinke, I believe, is 37 years old now, the only returning pitcher from their World Series winning years is Lance McCullers. Obviously, Garrett Cole not there anymore. They've gotten very thin in the rotation. And I think if those young players can build off a very strong postseason, and Greinke can kind of, again, set the table for Houston. I think I definitely give their rotation the edge at this point over Oakland's as well. So that's why I have Houston winning the West this year.
Larry Patakowicz.
Hey, listen, the rotation is good. They still have some good guys in their lineup. There's Altuve and Bregman. And I believe this is Correa's last year before he's a free agent. So, sometimes that's a good thing, right? All right, fine, you got to worry about paying him. But guys in the contract year normally want to play hard, especially where we had this strange offseason where teams didn't make money and teams didn't want to spend money, where next offseason, they may all of a sudden want to spend money. So Correa, it's in his best interest to play well so he can get paid. That they have some other young guys on the team. They have a guy like, Kyle Tucker, where he batted, 268 last year, but he did show a little bit of power. I think Baseball Reference has got him at 19 home runs, 77 RBIs, and he's a guy who's more like a number 6, a number 7 hitter in your lineup. So if you can have some of these other guys complement, then I think they'll be all right. Though, I think Oakland might be the team that has the advantage, and that's my pick to win the division. But Houston's absolutely a playoff team.
Casey Bryant.
I think that even without George Springer in their lineup, they have among the strongest 1 through 9 lineups in baseball. It really is ridiculous. And the re-signing of Michael Brantley and that 24-hour soap opera of he's going to Toronto, he's not going to Toronto, was a huge re-signing for them because it takes a lot of the pressure off of Kyle Tucker and Miles Straw, who are 2 young outfielders that are going to be having a lot of expectation to carry the weight because everyone else in that lineup's going to be hitting. They better be ready. And Kyle Tucker has proven that he can hit. He led the league in triples last year. He's an exciting player. So the rotation will sort itself out because the bullpen is also still strong. You do have Joe Smith in there, New York Mets legend, holding down the 8th inning. And your closer, Ryan Presley, is fine. This is a really strong team still. I think that the first weekend, if they can have fans back in their building, which I can't even keep track of what the rules are anymore, but if they're able to have fans back, that first homestand is going to be really interesting because they're going to be welcoming back AJ Hinch.
Yes, playing Detroit. Yes.
So that's going to be I think, energize the Astros, because they're going to get that feel good, we won in 2017 feeling in that clubhouse. And it's going to set the table for the confidence boost that they need because you could tell there was a lack of confidence last year, even without fans.
100%.
And getting to open that season with a celebration rather than opening it with, say, a series in the Bronx, it's a different tone setter. That's a random shot that I could just be guessing, but I think that could set the table for what would be a very successful division-winning season for the Astros.
Rob DeLuca to conclude the Astros.
Yeah, this is good. This is tight. It's going to be real tight between Oakland and Houston, but focusing on Houston here. They're still a very good team even without Springer. A very, very good team, very scary team, very complete team. We've been liking to throw that word around tonight. Trash cans aside, I mean, who knows if they're still doing it or not? Nobody can really say or not. But nonetheless, I really like what I see out of Houston, sadly. But I think they really are probably one of the best teams in baseball still. They really rode that momentum in the playoffs. They still got that stacked infield. Those 2 young outfielders are going to be great for them. And it honestly, and as Casey said, it makes a big difference where you start your season, a big difference. And starting at home, more than likely with fans, is huge because you guarantee did not want to start this season in the Bronx even with only 10% of the building. Still, you did not want to start in a Yankee Stadium with people in it. You were not going to get out of there in good shape. So this is huge for them, and I believe that Houston will ride the momentum from last season into this season. And as Ian had mentioned, they're a little more primed for a full 162-game season than Oakland, so Houston will win the AL West.
Okay, well, that is a very bold statement there, because let's not forget, if we're continuing with legends on this team, how about Miami Marlins legend Steve Cishek as well? He's on that team as well. Casey Bright, I know he wants to, definitely comment on that, but we're gonna have to keep moving forward there because we simply don't have time. But Oakland Athletics guys, they concluded the season last year as the AL West winner. Matt Chapman returns, Platinum Glove winner. Elvis Andrus is now their new shortstop, and that was exactly what we said at the top of this segment. Texas had traded Chris Davis for Elvis Andrus 1-for-1. Now, next to Matt Chapman, you have a proven shortstop. I mean, you lose Marcus Semien to the Toronto Blue Jays, and you replace someone that has years of experience, also World Series appearance experience as well, in the aforementioned Andrews. So let's keep moving forward, guys. Casey Bryant, Oakland Athletics, where do you see them?
The A's are going to be really interesting because the A's are always a team that somehow comes up with random players to supplant ones that they just lost. Of all the players that come cycling through that organization that are legitimate stars, there's always someone waiting in the wings. I mean, that is Billy Bean Moneyball, right? Yeah. They lost Marcus Semien. They do have Elvis Andrus coming in, right? There were rumors of them trading Matt Chapman. Even if they traded Matt Chapman, they'd probably have some dude coming out of Section 114 that can play third base and hit 270 and win a Gold Glove. Because that's just how that organization works. They're always a fun team because you always have to kind of play catch up with their roster of who is that playing right field? Mark Canha. Who is Mark Canha? Casey's
been that way for 20 years.
Who is Ramon Laureano, and why do I love him for challenging the Astros dugout and just charging the entire team? They're always a fun, scrappy team. They have an identity, and their identity is randomness. And I think that makes them sort of unpredictable, but I do think they'll be vying again for the division title. I think it's the Astros division to lose, but the A's are certainly in a better spot than any of the other three teams.
So DeLuca had, or who didn't go here for Oakland? Who's next? Larry, go ahead.
Sure. Listen, Oakland, they win the division in a 60-game sprint. They win 97 games in 2019. And it's like Casey said, sometimes you just change the names. It doesn't matter. They put that green uniform on, and the team sometimes is full of diamonds in the rough. It's whatever system that they have. It is the Moneyball system. It has worked. Look, we talk about how they lost Semien. Don't worry, they replaced him with Andrus. Then you have young guys. You have a catcher like Sean Murphy who comes out of nowhere. This team is going to compete. For some reason, they have heart. They put it together, and they probably will just keep doing it. But I think that I think Houston looked different in 2020 compared to 2019. I think them losing George Springer makes that team a little weaker, though I still think they're a really good baseball team. But I really like Oakland to just keep the train rolling.
Who's concluding Oakland here, fellas?
Yeah, sure. I'll be real quick. Yeah, Casey's right. You don't know what you're gonna get with the Oakland Athletics. It's something new every year. These guys you never hear of. But there is one difference now with the Oakland Athletics. Billy Bean's not here anymore. He left. So the whole mantra of the Oakland Athletics could, in theory, be different now because he's no longer a part of the organization. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they fare in their first year without him calling some sort of the shots. It'll be very interesting, and I think that's why, while they're still going to be in the race, and it's going to be very, very close, they're going to finish in second place. Probably still make the playoffs, but they're not going to win the division.
Ian Schraier, not only who wins the division, but who wins the division?
I'm still going to stick with the Houston Astros, and I think it's going to be a 2-horse race. I like, as Casey said, I love Houston's lineup from 1 to 9. They're, to me, from a perspective of driving in runs, they're the most complete team in that division. But for me, just because of the two rotations that Houston and Oakland have, it's really going to come down to pitching in that division between those two teams. Whereas where we said Houston outside of Greinke is very, very, and McCullers is very, very young. You have a little bit of inconsistency with Oakland's rotation in terms of year to year. They're all different. You got pitchers like Chris Bassett and Seth Manaea that really need to find some sort of consistency in terms of their form. So that's why I'm going to go with Houston. But I think if Houston, the thing for me between Oakland and Houston is that with Oakland, if Oakland's pitching doesn't get working, I don't think they have enough offense to drive in runs to outscore teams. Houston has the ability to do that. And that's why I'm going to take Houston.
I'm gonna have Oakland as my AL West winner, just because Oakland always seems to find a way. And if we're continuing on with legendary stories, how about Houston Astros legend Mike Fiers is going to come back and haunt the Astros yet again? That's simply what I see. I also see Sean Manaea could potentially do the same exact thing as what he did a couple of years ago, which was have a no-hitter. And you know what? Listen, maybe you could build off of that in a 162 sprint. Who knows? It's we're thankfully on the downward slope of our COVID year. So we'll see what the deal is moving forward. Casey and Larry, real quick, who do you guys have as your AL West winners? Okay.
So, Oakland.
Oakland. Okay. All right. Guys, let's wrap this bad boy up. And we've been on here now a record long 2 hours and 20 minutes. We can't thank everyone enough for being on with us 20 minutes past the top of the hour. Let's get to our kudos segment here. Casey, Larry, you guys are with us now. You guys have your own sense of kudos. Larry Protakowicz, take it away. Who do you give your kudos to this week?
I am giving my kudos to a name that we don't hear about often with the Mets, and that's acting GM Zach Scott. Everyone talks about Sandy Alderson. Zach Scott finished second for being GM, became the assistant GM. We all know what happened, and now he's the acting GM. He said last week that they were not done with their rotation, and he lived by the mantra, you can never have too much pitching. The Mets in this offseason, they just signed Walker today to a 2-year deal with a player option for a 3rd year, adding to the back of that rotation. But the Mets have added so many pitchers onto their roster going into spring training. It is a night and day difference than what Brody did last year with the Rick Porcello and Mike Walker project. They have a rotation right now that looks like DeGrom, Stroman, Carrasco, Walker. Then it can be Peterson, Lucchesi, Yamamoto. You got Syndergaard coming back, probably you hope June, July, something like that. And then there's other guys. We traded Matz away for Reed Foley. They have these other guys who were invited to spring training who are minor leaguers. They've set themselves up where the days of Walter Lockett and company have come to an end, and he deserves kudos for that.
Casey Bryant.
It happens to work out this way. I honestly, truthfully, did not intend for it to be this way. But I want to give my kudos to a tandem of Steve Dangle and Edge. Edge, as previously established, is the star of Money Plane. I genuinely did not plan that. But they are Steve Dangle, obviously a very famous Toronto Maple Leafs YouTuber who has parlayed that into a terrific career up in Sportsnet, Rogers. And Edge is a huge Maple Leaf fan. And they had a very fun viral feud earlier this week of Edge showing off his Maple Leaf gear. He's got like 7 different Martin Brodeur game used signed masks. Like, it's insane. Edge
he used to be a diehard Devils fan.
Edge has some legit Leafs gear. He's got the Team Canada masks. He's got the all sorts of jerseys and stuff. And the exchange in wrestling promos, even as someone who didn't really necessarily grow up on following every single plot line that Vince McMahon concocts this week. It was a lot of fun to watch. And plus, I think generally hockey needs more personality. So for it to come from Edge, I think that's to come from someone like an A-list star from Money Plane. I mean, that says all you need to know. Who says the NHL can't get the big names, right?
Ian Schraier.
I don't have a particular kudos for an individual, but kudos to the Mets on the Tim Tebow experiment finally ending. The ticket selling scam that to put rear ends in the seats, the public relations stunt that was Tim Tebow could actually play baseball. Look, it's just another box to check in the hard legacy of the Wilpon family. But I was going to say credit to the Mets at least on the Taijuan Walker signing today, which was really crucial for that rotation to at least stretch it out a little bit, because they were definitely a little weak in that 4-5 area until Syndergaard came back. But yeah, that's my kudos. Thankfully, the Tim Tebow days in Mets spring training are now over.
Rob DeLuca.
I'll throw my kudos to my boys in Newark, the New Jersey Devils. I mean, they had a real rough time with COVID-19. The entire team essentially tested positive, and they were out for 16 days. It was completely rough. We really didn't know what was going to happen for the rest of this season, and they come back after 16 days, decisively defeat the New York Rangers. Come back last night, defeat the Boston Bruins 3-2. A phenomenal effort. This team, you wouldn't even think they all had COVID and more, but they are playing like they were just off for 16 days, and they're happy to be back, and they're hungry, and it's great to see. Mackenzie Blackwood is finally starting to get some respect on his name with the guys like Carter Hart and Igor Shesterkin. It's about time he gets his name with those guys too, because he is in the talent level of those guys.
So I actually have two kudos now, and the reason why I have two kudos is because of a Trevor Bauer tweet that actually just came up about 14 minutes ago in response to Noah Syndergaard. We'll get to that in just a moment. If anyone wants to pull that up, we can't pull it up on the screen though, but please take a peek at it now. So my kudos goes to the National Hockey League, because I'm sure that everyone has seen what tomorrow is going to look like. Good. The outdoor game at Lake Tahoe is probably the coolest outdoor game that we are going to ever see. Okay. Seeing these pictures and these visuals is probably the coolest thing. Okay. This to me is almost like backyard baseball, but like backyard hockey. Right. And I think that, in this pandemic that we are living in here, it truly is amazing to see that hockey is now finally going back outdoors, when the Raleigh, North Carolina game was axed in terms of fans and everything. But now we're going to have two games there. Our good friend Dennis Bernstein will be there as well, covering for the fourth period. Really cool stuff. But like I said, the National Hockey League, they need some positivity moving forward. So really good thing tomorrow, starting, I believe, at 2 or 3 o'clock NBC, is Colorado, Vegas, and Sunday is Philadelphia and Boston. That is part 1 of 2. Now that everyone has seen the tweet or the little exchange between Noah Syndergaard and Trevor Bauer, Noah Syndergaard posted a picture of him throwing nothing but smiles for spring training. Him and Robert Gazelman were throwing, and that was his thing. And then Noah Syndergaard subtweeted that, or quoted the tweet, and said, and then he said, quote, "I'm sorry I chose another team, but I'll donate to your charities," end quote. That obviously was from Trevor Bauer. And then Trevor Bauer responded, when mistakes are made, you try to make them right. I know you wouldn't know anything about making mistakes, though. Hope rehab is treating you well. Was good to see you back throwing, end quote. So who knows? Maybe in June or July when Noah Syndergaard comes back, and it could be the Trevor Bauer, Noah Syndergaard thing. If I don't know when the Mets play the Dodgers, but that would be a fun sight to see. I saw Ian Schraier kind of chuckle a little bit of that because, of course.
Well, Trevor Bauer also retweeted some improper comments by Noah Syndergaard. So Mets gonna Mets again.
Because Trevor has such a spotless reaction.
Yeah, I know.
A spotless record of interacting with fans. Jesus Lord.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can't thank you all enough for coming on here and being with us here this Friday night. Again, you're staying almost a half hour after with us. Let's not forget the Primetime Rundown. Please do not forget to subscribe to us on the Google Play Store, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and even watch us on YouTube. Search I-95 Sports Network and find us at the Primetime Rundown. Please do not forget that. Also, tomorrow we continue our partnership with the New York Professional Scouts Association and the Eastern Observer as I try and figure out who Bill Teed used to be. Bill Teed is a listen. I couldn't figure him out from whatever. All I know is that Dick Teed, old friend of a whole bunch of our scouts, that this is his brother. So Bill Teed, former Phillies, Giants, and Orioles legendary scout. He was the one to sign Mike Remlinger. Let's not forget, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on the Eastern Observer. Really, really cool stuff. As always, episode 44 comes your way tomorrow morning. Also, starting Monday, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Ryan Joy from Minutes to Bell Time takes you through the daily wrestling news show and all of the wrestling events that happened the night before. Join him every single morning, Monday through Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. right here on the Eastern Observer. Also, let's not forget, we actually, of course, I forgot the graphic again for the Essential Wrestling Podcast, but every Tuesday night, episode number 42 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast will return starting at 6 p.m. right here on the Eastern Observer. Join our guys, Ryan Joy, Al Carl, John DeConi, John Smith, Gary Mehefe, and Tyler Adele as they take you through the world of wrestling, presented to you by Pro Wrestling Pick'em. That all begins right here on the Eastern Observer starting at 6 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, one final time for my guys, Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, and our fantastic guests, Casey Bryant, Larry Protakowicz. I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us at the Blackjack Media Group, we'll see you next time.